Oh, anybody else? I wasn't watching House. What? Okay, hold on. If I get a 940 plus, she's fine. What? What is? It's broken. It's broken. What? This game. We don't need her. Lots of drama today. What's all going on? I'm making quality, but it's slow as right? Is this how people normally do it? You have a thing that makes it, and then if it's too low of a quality, it like reprocesses it. Hopefully this is okay. All right, what do we got?
Hey, deserving listeners. So I was recently in an iDubbbz content cop video, as some of you know, and I wanted to make a follow-up video of my own. But first, I thought we would watch a little clip of the interview that Ian actually pulled from to include in his content cop video.
All right, AR-15, did you get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? It's back there, but I'm waiting for my stuff to come for it, okay? Gonna have a whole armory behind me by the end of this year, okay?
Are you in pain? Are you to include in his content cop video? Are you in pain? Are you remembering the pain of
yeah.
What was hurting at that time? What is the pain?
What'd you end up getting? I think it's a 14-inch barrel of Giesel. Is that how you pronounce the brand? Lower, upper. Have you shot the alien yet? I put 2 full mags through it yesterday without it jamming, and then it started jamming again. I think it's getting better, or something is happening, but oh my god. When it's working, Geisly, not Geasley, sorry, Geisly. When it's working, it's like boom, 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 boom. When it works, whew. When it works, it works.
I think just being like super lost and not feeling like I have any control over anything. But I will say that Anissa was like my only amount of like stability during that, so like that kind of helped me in a way.
Yeah.
Because she was very I mean, she was experiencing it too, but I think she was much more grounded, like leading into it. So, you know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Neela. I'm like, fuck, like,
Get a revolver? Maybe. Someday.
it's just really it's really hard to be a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like if you come to their defense, that doesn't always help them, right? Sometimes that makes it worse for them. So I'm seeing Ethan go through a lot of that. Ethan and Neela.
Okay, so I wanted to use that clip as an introduction to this video. I'll show more from that interview later on. So recently,
I would just like to say, I hope one day, this is my dream, okay? This is my dream. This dream will never come true, but I can still dream it, okay? My dream is that one day I have trained you guys so well that there are people that we can look at that we fucking hate, okay? That have just done horrible, stupid shit, like Ian, like iDubbbz, okay? But when they say something true, we can go, oh yeah, that's true. One day, okay? What Ian says here is very true. And funnily enough, even though everybody on his side of the aisle gave him credit for saying it, and they destroyed me for saying it, one of the big issues that I had in the past with people like with Lav, or when there would be people on stream that are getting attacked, is one of the things I would say, especially for women, but really for anybody, is that I can't come out and just defend them from all criticism, because sometimes defending them will make people hate them even more, because they'll go, oh, now you're getting favorable treatment or whatever. Or like, oh, this person's just defending you because they're simping or whatever. And it is actually very frustrating that you deal with it, because you're not actually sure, like, okay, well, I'm not actually sure how I'm supposed to step in or intervene or whatever in this particular moment. But it is challenging. And I'm sure he had to deal with a lot of this as well. But
I was in an iDubbbz video, a content cop video. The first content cop video that he has published in 7 years. In this video, iDubbbz goes after Ethan Klein.
the issue here isn't if it's right or wrong. It's that he is talking about his situation, which is entirely different than Ethan's situation. It's not either Ethan's shitty situation. Well, we don't know, because it sounds like, and I could be wrong, I'm just making an assumption, but well, I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong. It sounds like they had a full conversation that wasn't just the 1 minute clip that we saw in the video. That ended up in the content cop, right? I'm guessing they had a full-on conversation about this stuff.
The video, of course, has millions of views. Everyone is talking about it on the internet right now. And I have heard from a lot of you saying that you're worried about me because you know about the toxicity of these kinds of dramas, and this drama specifically, and the larger drama about the war in Gaza. And along these lines,
I guess this guy probably, the Kirk Honda guy, he just probably doesn't do politics as much, right? Like at all. It's just him describing it that way is fucking wild. The drama in Gaza.
Larger drama about the war in Gaza. And along these lines, the online assholes have already showed up in my inbox, of course. I knew that this would happen. And I wasn't planning on doing this, but I thought that I would provide a little video here describing my involvement.
The difference is Ethan is defending Hila because the internet is attacking her for defending Israel. They're both defending Israel. Ian missed the point. I made all about his issues during a situation with Anissa. I would have to see, maybe we'll get into it here, what the longer context is about. But for all of the hating on Ian, of which there is plenty, which is fine, hate away. I hate on Ian a lot. Especially since he went ultra woke. There was a lot of like really gross, disgusting bullshit attacks on him and Anissa because Anissa did OnlyFans and because they started dating. There were like abhorrently gross, disgusting comments made about her by people like Sam Hyde and others. So regardless of anything having to do with the situation with Ethan.
Involvement in the video. So first off, if
to most people,
you're new
stuff
to
like
this
that doesn't affect them. It's literally just drama, memes, or entertainment. What do you mean?
Describing my involvement in the video. So first off, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I have been a therapist and a professor since around 1997, and I started this podcast, Psychology in Seattle, in 2008, 17 years ago. And I have been...
Why include it in the content cop in that case then? I think that was a huge mistake. I think it super undermines whatever message would have been in that, and I think it kind of weaponizes... I really don't like the weaponization of therapy or therapy language. I think it's a huge hallmarker. I think a lot of women do it now. There's probably men that do it too. I just don't interact with men in that way, so it's hard to see it as much. But like the whole like calling people crazy and like using like a psychology term like, oh, my boyfriend gaslit me. No, he didn't. He lied to you. He didn't gaslight you. He just lied to you. Okay. Or like, oh my God, he was being emotionally abusive. No, it sounds like he just didn't agree with you and called you a mean name, and then you called him a mean name. You guys weren't being abusive to each other. You guys were just being mean. Okay.
Making all sorts of content, psychology related. So I thought the best way to explain my involvement in iDubbbz content cop video was to give a brief summary of the chronology up until this point. So I took some notes here. Back in May of 2023, so 2 years ago, many people were asking me to analyze an apology video by iDubbbz. I only knew iDubbbz from Creator Clash, which was the year prior. So I didn't know what he would be apologizing for because I didn't know what he was known for or what he...
The reason that it is bad is that in the content cop, Ian included that moment crying about it and came off as Ian pretending to care about Ethan and Hila's emotions. No, I 1,000,000,000% agree with that. I'm sorry, let me be clear, okay? Including it in the content cop was really cringe, and the way that they presented it almost did make it seem like Ian was like crying because he cared so much about Ethan and Hila. In my mind, I feel like that had to have come from a different conversation, so I guess I wasn't playing it as much back then. But I mean, it definitely felt that way. I could see how people would feel that, which is gross. They shouldn't have done that. That was definitely not good. But
So I didn't know what he would be apologizing for because I didn't know what he was known for or what he had published prior. So I watched his apology video and analyzed it, and I gave him a B. And to my surprise, he commented on the video.
why is Ian associated with denims is bad, but you doing it with Sam Hyde is not? Didn't you do the same thing to Ian that Ian did to Ethan? I can't tell when these questions are real or not. I can't tell. I really can't tell. I can't tell. Why is Ian associated with denims is bad, but you doing it with Sam Hyde is not? One, I'm not even friendly with Sam Hyde. Like, we have the most tenuous of friendly connections. I think I've talked to him twice on stream. I'm not friends with him at all. Yeah, I don't even know what the connection that you're talking about could be there. Number one. Number two, though, and I understand I'm unique here because I am an outcast from all internet communities. But if somebody does something bad or rude or wrong or mean, then I have no problem saying that. And I won't pull punches or like be quiet because I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Whereas these people won't say anything to defend somebody. So for instance, if I was friendly with Sam Hyde, like I just said it, Sam Hyde, the comments that he made about Inisa, I think were gross. I think that Ian was totally within his right, I think, to kick him out of the, oh, I don't know about the Froggy guy. That was a little bit more, I'm not as sure, because I think Sam Hyde was just training him, and I think Ian was being unclear about it initially. But, like, I fully, I can understand why Ian would hate him there. It's not so much, like, who do you associate with, although that can be a part of it. It's more just, like, what are the comments that you're willing to make publicly about it? And then, yeah, that's what I would say. I complain about this, actually, it's really funny. I complain about this so many times over the past few years. One of the worst feelings as a celebrity, and Ian kind of talked about this, not Ian, I'm sorry, Ethan, they have similar names. Ethan kind of talked about this. One of the worst feelings as a celebrity is when other celebrities message you or email you or DM you or whatever, and they're like, hey, I just want you to know, I see that you're going through some shit, man, and I support you, but I will never, ever, ever fucking say anything publicly about it, and my community will continue to trash you, but I want you to know I got your back. I got your back, dog. I got you. I got you, dog. Behind the scenes, dog. But I'm never going to say shit about it publicly. And my whole community thinks you're a fucking XYZ, okay? But I got you. And it's like, wow, bro. That's so brave. Thank you for wanting to maintain the clout connection, but being unwilling to stake any public position on it. Thanks, my dude. Better than nothing? No, nothing is better. I think nothing is better. That just in my mind, yeah.
Which was interesting because that doesn't usually happen. And I came...
What makes a person like Ian change so much? Is it really a cliche like love? Was he faking before or now? There's several things that are going on. One that I can admit now, but I would have never admitted earlier in my life. And then another just has to do with changing internet. One is that I do believe, you just never would admit this. Young men just have a hotter type of energy where we burn bright, especially if you're edgy. And I think as you get older, you talk to more people, you see more perspectives. There are some things that are epic and hilarious when you're younger. And then when you get a little bit older, you're like, fuck, it's kind of mean. It was funny, but probably meaner than it should have been. I don't need to be that mean, okay? This is one of the reasons why I let Sneeko slide on so much unhinged shit. I mean, like, I'll still, like, call him out for it, but I'll be like, yeah, hey, dude, he's a young dude. He's, like, 20. I don't know what he is now, 24, 25. But, yeah, when you're younger, especially when you're a man, young men, we're just wild, okay? We're unhinged a little bit. And so you get older, you mellow out a bit. And then also, the internet culture has changed a lot, too. In some ways, for the worst, okay? The wokies are out here policing us and canceling people and Me Tooing people with lawsuits that are sometimes crazy, you know, all sorts of crazy stuff happening. But in some ways, it's better. The internet has expanded a fuck ton. That people can make money online doing work full time. The quality of the content in some ways has gotten a lot better, even if the originality or creativity has suffered a bit. And there's just been like more people, more styles of content. This is good. You know, there's a lot of good stuff that comes from that as well. So the culture has changed a lot, and then people have gotten older, and then you look back and like, okay. The only problem is, okay, this was my process. I've explained this a few times in high school. We'll do this real quick, okay? I was a super Catholic person up until like, I think 14, 15. I don't know why. I had another Catholic friend, the girl who used to give me rides, and she started recommending me Ayn Rand. I started to become like more atheist. And then I started to read, it was a longer book. I think it was the Atlas Shrugged one. And then it was the short story Anthem. And after these two things, I become enamored with Ron Paul. I'm like a full-on objectivist. I'm like, oh my God, this is the smartest shit ever. And I don't know why. Okay, I don't know why my brain had this moment. I'm so glad I had this moment. I don't know how this happened. But at some point, I stopped and I realized, I was like, okay, I went from being a Catholic to an atheist, and then I found one person that I read, and I read everything by her. Well, not everything. I think she has a couple other books and essays and shit. But I read this stuff, and I just completely and totally like bought into her ideology 1,000,000,000%. And I thought, okay, well, what are the chances that as soon as I become an atheist, the first person that I read happens to have all the answers? Like, it's probably more that this person has a huge advantage on me because they're much older than me and they can write better and they can be persuasive, and I just haven't like learned enough. So I need to exercise a lot of like ideological humility and just be aware that, especially as a younger person, I can get persuaded by a lot of shit. So I need to sit back and evaluate, okay, well, what are the really fundamental important things to me, absent reading anybody else? Like, I don't need anybody to tell me that, rape and murder is bad. And I should be able to think at least a little bit about, well, why is rape and murder bad? Okay, well, I don't like these things being done to me. There's probably a lot of other people that probably feel the same way. We probably have to have some kind of shared agreement. And you kind of like build out from there. And then after you have like kind of the bare bones or skeletons of things that you find important, then you kind of like read other people to fill in the blanks. Okay. I don't know. That process I think is really important. I think that sometimes what happens is when people get ejected out of one world because there's just too much dissonance, they can't handle it because it's just not working, right? In terms of how they want to see themselves in the world, how they want to see the world, which I imagine happened with Ian, and Ethan too, actually. But Ian, where he's like, okay, I don't want to contribute to this much like, nasty stuff or being a massive hater or bullying people. Once you have that moment, if you don't take a step back and like kind of do this fundamental evaluation where you're like, okay, well, why are these things good? Why are these things bad? If you don't step back and do that, then what'll happen is you will fall completely into the next thing that you read or analyze. And that's what happened with Ian, I think, because he went from the super edgy, N-word saying guy to the ultra wokey, from one, like, it's like the internet meme, like, wow, you're telling me he went from being a far right extremist to a far left extremist. No way, huh? It's because these people haven't taken a step back and thought like, okay, well, fundamentally, what are the things that are important to me? What are the values that I want to defend and project into the world? Yeah, there you go.
Came to learn that he and his wife, Anissa, have been fans of my channel. Then about a year later, in February.
I think Ayn Rand and Rand Paul are easy to mix up. Wait, did I say Rand Paul? I meant to say Ron Paul. He said Rand Paul? I meant Ron Paul. Ron Paul ran for president in 2008. I was a huge libertarian back then. When you say you go through these evaluations, are you writing this stuff down or is it thoughts over time? Sometimes it's thinking, if there's like a big thing I need to think about, I'll write it down. I think writing stuff down is really good because you can write arguments back and forth to yourself, and you can, it's just good to have it like formalized on paper. And then it's easier to attack an argument that you've written down rather than to try to think of an argument and then think of the counter argument and then go back. It's just writing stuff down is good, I think. And you can put stuff down on electronic notepad and then pick it up later as well.
Fans of my channel. Then about a year later, in February of 2024, so about a year ago, Stacy and I, my wife, we were at a breakfast joint here in Seattle, and Ian and Anissa, if you don't know, iDubbbz, his name is Ian. Ian and his wife, Anissa, approached our table because they saw us walk in. We connected and started talking about being on each other's podcast. And then we started to chat more off air and text each other and stuff. And I would watch one of his unboxing videos and laugh, and I would text him and say, that was a funny bit there or whatever. And I, over time, started to learn more about their lives. Even on the podcast, we talked about their lives and the history of their childhood and their families, and also what they went through regarding the recent cancellation or internet drama that they had been going through. And it might surprise many of you that Ian, off air, is very soft-spoken. He's a really good listener, actually, as well. In fact, my wife only knows Ian through meeting him in person. And when she saw the Content Cop video, the one right here with Ethan, My wife was actually surprised at how brazen and how outspoken he is in the video. The other thing that is notable is that it was pretty clear to me that he deeply regretted what he had done before online. That he...
There's also this, why don't you use this camera setup when you make appearances on shows like Piers Morgan, and that other one you just did. Wait, I did use this camera setup. What are you talking about? There's another thing to be said for this, and again, I don't like to rag on people because everybody's on their own life journey. And maybe I even overemphasize this by trying to do a diversity of content or have a diversity of things I think about. Sometimes I think people leave a thing, or people, you know, they leave a thing, and then that thing, the antithesis of that thing becomes the defining aspect of their life. It influences every single thing about them. A really good example, anytime you see a person who's like an ex whatever, Muslims do this a ton. I'm an ex-Muslim. I left Islam, and their whole life becomes about anti-advocacy, anti-Islamic advocacy, or anti-religious advocacy. The hardcore atheists in the early 2010s, late 2000s did this. Me, one of them, for a while. Yeah, when people leave a thing, sometimes they define themselves as the antithesis of that thing, and I think that's not good either. You get like really pigeonholed.
Knew now just how bigoted and toxic and hurtful it was. I'll never forget him telling me a story.
The framing of the shot, not the tech. What, you mean like a super duper close-up? I mean, I could just zoom the fuck in. What was it called? Al-Alibia? I don't even know that. Fuck, I'm never gonna be able to find this. Oh, I did find it.
Rise.
What? This is just a close-up. Why did they? Why is my? Wait, did they fuck with the aspect ratios? I feel like they stretched this guy's face. I feel like they compressed my face. Wait, what the fuck? What's going on in here? I mean, I could just zoom in on my camera, but no. We getting wide. Dude, this debate was wild. This guy here to the right is like on my side with the free speech stuff, but he is an insane pro-Pally, and I doubt he believes in freedom of speech. I think he just is pro-Pally, and the Palestinian people were getting deported, so he was pro-free speech here. And then this guy on the left was super deport them all, who the fuck cares, but he was way more pro-Israel, so I was kind of, oh my god, this was so awkward. The comments on this were really good. Yeah, but I think it's because it's mostly you guys.
I don't know if it was on the air or not, but he was at a public event of some sort, and one of his fans approached him and said, look, I know you don't like my people, meaning trans, but I'm a big fan, so can you sign this or something like that?
Oh, shit. Wait.
Fans approached him and said, look, I know you don't like my people, meaning trans, but I'm a big fan, so can you sign this or something like that? And in that moment, Ian just, his heart broke and sunk and was...
Wait, how long ago was this? There's no way somebody said this to him recently. Is he describing it? I'm sorry, I've paused this to talk about it. Is this a story that Ian told him from a long time ago? Because if so, I could believe it. We saw this happen to... This is a long time ago? Oh, yeah. We saw this happen to Sneeko, kind of, right? Where, not exactly, but didn't like two kids come up to Sneeko and they were like, hey, what's up? Like, we hate Jews or we hate trans people or something? And Sneeko's like, whoa. We hate women? Oh, yeah. Wait. I said trans people. Are you saying trans people aren't women? Got him. Just kidding. Okay. What specifically did Ethan do to piss off these retards? Ethan right now is just a stand-in for like the rabidly not... Anything that's not a total and 100% buy-in to the Palestinian narrative just gets written off as being massively, pro-Zionist, basically. Which is sad, but that's, I mean, that's what it is.
Hurting because he thought, oh, this is a human being, this is someone, and they're a fan. They know that I don't like them just because they're trans. Like there's something terribly wrong with my career at this point.
I think there's something, I wish that people would understand this thing, okay? I understand why. To some extent, it doesn't matter what your intention is when you say or do a certain thing. What matters is the effect or the impact you have on another person, right? You know, you can say like, oh, well, I didn't mean it for you to take it that way, but, well, I mean, some people are going to take things ways regardless because you don't always have the opportunity to, you know, dictate to them what your intention is. Who knows what context they're seeing it in? You know, there's a whole bunch of reasons why somebody might not get the same context out of a thing that you wanted them to get out of it. But there's something to be said for, and this is why I wish we just had more words to describe like racism or transphobia. But I guess we can say like problematic is a word, but it feels like it got co-opted and it's so fucking soy. But like there's something to be said for a guy like Ian, or a guy like me who does like a lot of edgy content, incredibly edgy, you know, racial humor, sexist humor, whatever. And then somebody comes up to you like, oh, hey, like, I know that you like don't like gay people, you don't like this. And then for that moment to be like, well, wait, hold on. It's not that I don't like you guys, or no, I don't mean it like that. The fact that a person like that is willing to have that reaction where it's like, well, fuck, okay, it might seem like that, but I don't actually hate you guys, right? It shows that there's like a different thing at play there than just, they're not motivated by just racism. They're not motivated by just sexism. Yeah. I feel like one thing that people don't remember, because it must have been this like 10-year section of the internet, which feels like a long time. It was a long time ago. But there really was this time on the internet where all you could do was just ramp up how edgy you were being to get attention. Like that was it. You were just going as edgy as fucking possible to get a rise out of people. Because at some point, like slurs or whatever the fuck else, like no one gives a fuck. Everybody will say this. You had to be super edgy with your word choice. You had to be witty. You had to be dark as fuck. Like that's where you get things like Goatsy, right? You're like literally linking a picture to, you know, is that the one with the guy's like exploded asshole with the glass jar, or like Two Girls, One Cup? Like this stuff is existing because people are just ramping up the fucking edginess as much as possible. And then when you take that world and then you like translate it to YouTube and you start doing this, it's not because you necessarily hate all these people. If anything, I'll say carefully because some people are racist or sexist. If anything, back then, right, the joke was the stuff was so horrible. That's why it was funny. Is because like obviously this is a fucking horrible thing to say, but that's what makes it funny, you know. But regardless, Al Arabiya has a bad reputation. Do you know before going on? I think I looked a little bit. What is it, like a Qatari news network or something? I'd probably do like RT and stuff for a little bit now as I get back into the swing of things. But.
And that had been a buildup. He had started to notice the way that the internet was, or the way his fans were, or the monster that he had created online because his fans were going after people, that kind of thing. And so he started to seriously question what he was doing. And so he started to not make that kind of content anymore. But he wasn't being vocal about his change of heart, and he was investigating it even further, you know, through therapy, self-reflection, talking to his wife, experiencing the kind of bullying that she went through and the kind of toxicity that she was experiencing. And then he was starting to think, am I a part of that online bullying about, you know, I'm watching someone that I love go through that bullying. Am I one?
One of the reasons why having this happen to you is important as well is because it really does, and I've said this a lot, and if you played games, I don't know if it's the same anymore, but back in my day, the most toxic people were always the people that didn't turn on chat. And the reason why is because it's very, very difficult to be mean to somebody, like with your voice, when you can hear them being upset and everything. Like that's just, it requires like an inhuman amount of hatred to do that. Like you have to be a very evil person to hear somebody genuinely get really upset and then to keep going on. It's just a very difficult thing to do.
One of those bullies, not to Anissa, but to is there another Anissa out there that I've been attacking, and having that empathy, right? When people exhibit lack of empathy, usually it's because they haven't been given an opportunity to understand what other people are going through. Yeah. When you understand what other people are going through, it gives you an opportunity to have your natural empathy engaged, and that's what happened for him.
True.
Now, I want to say that a lot of you actually reached out to me when I started to collaborate with iDubbbz, telling me that I should not be collaborating with him because of the things that he has done. And those kinds of conversations are important. And if I were to blanketly endorse everything that he had done in the past, then that would be horrible of me, actually. But a lot of things are exhibited and playing out in my relationship with iDubbbz. One is that just on a personal level, I can relate to the online hate that he and Anissa received. I have only experienced 1% of that, but even that 1% was very hard to deal with emotionally. And when I would reach out to other content providers, they would almost always say things like, well, you just have to have a thick skin. And I thought, okay, I need to have a thick skin. Well, that didn't work for me. And I began to wonder if a lot of people were saying you have to have a thick skin because they didn't know what else to say or do. And that.
Why do you think it's okay to talk about Asman's dead mother? Imagine if you did the same about your son. You push Asman away from possibly turning from Trumpism. I read, somebody linked something in chat, and I read the headline to this, and I didn't read the article at all because I didn't have time and I was lazy. But I imagined a whole thing about what that article would say based on the headline. And now I'm afraid to read the article because I hope it's not something different. So it had to do with something along the lines of like, you're never being insensitive. You just don't have the power. I think that was the headline to this. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And the headline to this article has fucking rolled around in my head for the last 24 hours to where, because I'm trying to wonder, like, how is it that people like Asmongold can be so disgustingly unempathetic and then have the gall, the audacity to come out and accuse somebody else of being mean or insensitive? Like, that seems like it requires like an inhuman level of disconnectedness from everything that you've said and done. And I wonder if it literally just has to do with like who holds the power in the situation and then can thus dictate who it's okay to make fun of or not make fun of. And an Asmongold situation, and arguably culturally, I guess, if Republicans are in office and immigrants are the ones we shit on and brown people are the ones we shit on, the ones that we shit on, and government employees are the ones we shit on, you can make fun of them endlessly. It has nothing to do with empathy. It has nothing to do with how nice or mean you are. It just has to do with who has the power and who can dictate who the enemies are and who the friendlies are. When you ask me how can I make fun of Asmongold's mother, I think I made a point that Asmongold would literally justify anything, even the worst thing, which would be raping his mother's corpse, which I think is probably one of the worst things. Well, I don't know if it'd be rape. It's a corpse. Fucking a corpse. Let me be more specific with my language. I feel like it's one of the worst things you could probably think of in terms of what you could justify. In terms of that being mean, I am so sorry, but this weird game that people are playing where you can just act in the most insane, inhuman ways towards certain groups of people, and then, you know, like Twitter is a literal fucking Nazi safe space now in terms of the insane shit that we see on there. And you've got Elon Musk, you know, comedy is legal again. And all of these guys, you know, coming out about how like, oh, they're just trying to cancel everybody. They can't even tell a fucking joke anymore. I think the Made in America fleshlight joke for his mother's corpse, I think that was a pretty funny joke. I thought it was pretty edgy. I thought it was pretty funny. I think it, you know, works. I maybe could have thought of something about tariffing in there as well, right? Since it would be domestically manufactured. I think it's pretty funny. If something like that is so upsetting to him, he can spend all the time he wants virtue signaling to his audience or, you know, fake getting upset over whatever. I doubt he got upset. But in that case, can you turn like 10% of that towards the federal employees that you're literally making fun of as they're putting out TikToks or putting out Instagram posts or stories about how they're like having to leave their jobs, they're getting fired for no reason, instead of this like, oh, you can go DoorDash, or, you know, the joking about like, I'm gonna put on a Detective Pikachu costume and I'm gonna go celebrate with the immigration dude, you know, as they try to round up immigrants and deport them out of the country. Like, I'm sorry, like, these people are still alive. At least your mom's dead, right? She's not gonna get upset about any of the shit that I say about her body. These people are literally living and they're being harmed by the administration that you're supporting right now. That level of detachedness of like, oh, it's just politics, LOL, that's bullshit. And I have no sympathy for anybody that tries to play that game, okay?
And a lot of people were suffering. And then recently, over the last couple of years, I saw a lot of YouTubers with millions of subscribers closing shop and not making videos anymore. Because I think, and they would say sometimes, that it was because of their fans, even the way that they talk to the content provider. So I started to wonder if I might actually have to figure this out on my own, and that other content providers don't have an approach or a system or any sort of wisdom about how to cope with this. And I thought, well, I've been through a lot of therapy myself. As a profession and as a professor and as a content provider, it's important that I at least try to understand our psychology and our...
Like the fact, I think you're typing this unironically. So he makes fun of immigrants and you make fun of his dead mom, LeMayo logic. Like in my mind, I'm trying to think I'm being like a lay edgy logic lord here. Maybe I'm being a lay edgy logic lord a little bit, but in my mind, like one of those is clearly worse than the other. In one, you have people who are actively being deported from the country right now, whose lives are being destroyed. And in the other, you have a person who's dead. Like I would say that making fun of the people whose lives are actively being destroyed right now and supporting actively, politically, supporting an administration doing it is way worse than making fun of somebody's dead mom. Yeah.
To provider, it's important that I at least try to understand our psychology and our experience.
And I'm not even really making fun of his dead mom. I'm making fun of the absurd lengths he would go to defend this administration, using his dead mom as a prop for the joke. So I don't know anything about his mom. She might have been a nice lady. Or she might have been a piece of shit. I have no idea.
How to deal with things. And there's some parallels to being a professor and a therapist. And so I have my own approach. And so to see someone else go through this and to have them experience the fallout, even if I might say he deserved to have some fallout from what he put out there into the world for a number of years. The feelings and the experiences, I think, are not only personally interesting to me, but I feel like I want to provide a way of talking about this because there's this notion out there that you will hear a lot of people say that, well, they're famous, so then the gloves can come off. Right?
Destiny, don't say you aren't making fun of his dead mom while justifying doing so. You called this out. No, it's fine to bite the bullet here. Well, first of all, I'm not... What do you think? I'm dodging criticism on any of this? No. You can get mad at jokes. I'm just saying I'm not like making fun of his dead mom insofar as like I'm making fun of her for something she did. I'm making fun of him and the absurd lengths that he would go through to defend dumb shit that the Trump admin would do. I literally said I'm using her as a prop. Shit, you're fucking retarded.
Right? They know what they're getting into, or they're rich and famous, so it doesn't...
Destiny, Asman views it as illegals already breaking the laws. It's ignorance that clouds his thoughts. I mean, you can say that, but then the problem you get is, at what point do we have any responsibility whatsoever for the things that we believe? Like, I'm sorry, but Asmongold is an adult. He has access to the information. Like, he has everything he needs to make an informed view or to have an informed view of the world. Like, what am I supposed to... Like, how much of a baby can you be treated as? Like...
Doesn't matter if we bully them.
Okay, so, fuck. Stop! We'll talk about Asman after this, because apparently it responded to me, so... And I think I can stream really late tonight, so... Okay.
There's this notion out there that you will hear a lot of people say that, well, they're famous, so then the gloves can come off, right? They know what they're getting into, or they're rich and...
Real Will Smith. I almost did that, but one, I don't have the Photoshop skills, and two, I think it would have been too far, and three, I'm not even sure it would have been as funny. He said, Destiny, isn't Asman's mom a member of Frente Aragua? I thought about like doing a hand coming up from the grave and putting the fucking tattoos on the hand or whatever and being like, oh, this is why. I thought, or some bullshit. Because Trump literally just showed a fucking Photoshop picture, I think, of the guy's hand saying like, this is the reason why he got deported. I'm pretty sure that picture's not even real. But I don't, it would have been too much. And I don't know. And that's too much. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Listen to this.
That you will hear a lot of people say that, well, they're famous, so then the gloves...
The MS-13 is Photoshop, but the tattoos are real. Well, if the MS-1 and 3 are Photoshopped, then the picture would be Photoshopped, right?
Can come off, right? They know what they're getting into, or they're rich and famous, so it doesn't matter if we bully them or hurt them or try to attack them. You know, they're a public figure. They know what they signed up for. And what I would say to that is, just because someone's a public figure, then you can be a psychopath?
True.
No. And there's a lot of pain and loneliness in the world, and people are trying to cope with it in a variety of ways. And one of the ways that we've known about even before the internet is through social comparison and bullying. When you are on the playground and you see a bully, everyone understands that that bully is not dealing with emotions well, that they are not confident, that they are not secure.
What's the...
Mrs. Brown is like the most lesbo teacher I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? Why you reading, bitch?
Because I like to read, and this is a really good book.
You're a really good bitch, bitch.
Why you gotta bother me, man?
Because I'm not doing very well at school. I'm reading at a 3rd grade level. I really don't want to get left back. So when I see somebody reading for fun, it makes me feel that much more stupid. And then I get mad.
I didn't know that.
Asman said that yesterday he lost any will to talk to you anymore. He said, we'll never engage with you, so you did lose a potential Asman bridge. No, that's a lie, and you're a dipshit for believing that. Asman would have never spoken to me. He's had plenty of opportunities in the past. Conservatives do this thing, and Asman does it too. Everybody does it. Everybody's such a bitch. I wish people would be more honest about how they feel, or would stop being so scared or cowardly about their positions on things. Conservatives will do this thing where they'll be like, I'm trying to think of, we should be able to think of a ton of examples. It's almost like you've already done it, so I'm not, it's kind of, yeah, it's like but it's not really the same thing. A conservative will never have the intention of doing a particular thing. We'll say like some kind of healthcare program or whatever. They'll never have the intention of doing it. We'll just say some kind of single payer healthcare program. They're never going to. They were never going to. But then as soon as you do anything, say like funding war in Ukraine, they'll be like, well, you funded war in Ukraine, now you're never getting single payer healthcare. And it's like, motherfucker, you were never going to give us single payer healthcare. What the fuck are you talking about? What? Oh, now that you guys have, now that you tried to prosecute Trump, we're never going to, let the J6ers be held accountable. Like, motherfucker, you were never going to have those people held. Like, what are you talking about? This was always your position. Asmongold is never going to confront somebody that could critically challenge his views. Don't sit here and pretend like, oh no, well now that you said this, he's not going. Nah, the motherfucker was never going to, ever, never, ever. Okay, don't be a retard. All right.
Ways that we've known about even before the internet is through social comparison and bullying. When you are on the playground and you see a bully, everyone understands that that bully is not dealing with emotions well, that they are not confident, that they are not secure, that probably bad things are happening at home, right? Well, a lot of people have bad things that have happened in their past and present, and they go online and they take it out on other people, and it's understood among society that it's completely okay to unrelentingly bully a public figure, even if they're just a public figure on YouTube, right? So that kind of thinking needs to change, which, it makes sense that society doesn't really understand that yet. The internet is relatively new. Content providers and their feelings are relatively new, that sort of thing.
So many months ago, Asmongold wanted to go on bridges and you said no? No. I'm pretty sure what happened was a long time ago, I think Asmongold said he would go either on bridges or on anything else, but he said that if he came on, he didn't want to talk any politics. And to that, I said no. Because what the fuck? This is like, it was, even at that point, it was a thing that he had been heavily involved in. Why the fuck would you come on and we would completely avoid any political discussion? Fuck no.
So there's that. The other reason why I'm interested in all of this is because if we're going to make the world a better place, and we're going to see eye to eye, understand the other side of the aisle, reach out to other groups of people to try to work together. If we're going to do that, then we have to stop interacting with other people online the way that we tend to interact with other people online. And I saw an opportunity with iDubbbz, not only just for his sake, but also just for my mission to try to make the world a better place by demonstrating that through love, and I don't use that word lightly, but through love, through understanding, through, I believe, an accurate understanding of the human condition, we might actually be able to push things forward in a positive way for everybody. Because the way that people tend to react to these things is through cancellation and hatred and black and white thinking, which leads us to a lot of the ills of society today and in the past. So I saw an opportunity with iDubbbz to change and reemerge as a content provider with his new paradigm of empathy and understanding other people's experiences. And still providing entertainment and meaning. And
Why must it only have something about their life that is bad that causes them to act negatively? I would say, from a very weak vibe-based evolutionary psych understanding, I would say that humans are social creatures and we enjoy socializing with each other. It makes us feel good to do things that make other people happy. It makes us feel good when we see other people are happy. So if you're doing something to intentionally cause pain or suffering to somebody else, there's probably something broken there. Somebody's probably done something to you or hurt you in some way. That's generally the case. That generally really happy, really well-adjusted people aren't just spending all of their time, you know, like in snark forums or on weird like anti-fan message boards or just like being insanely hateful online, generally speaking.
empathy and understanding other people's experience.
I do think, though, one thing that sucks, I think one thing that sucks is that I think a lot of hatred online comes from people who just don't think about it much, though, where people will just like, they just say shit because it's like funny or whatever, and they don't think much about the impact on the person, and they just kind of like carry on. I think I've mentioned that so many people I've seen in real life who are insane fucking haters of mine, when I see them in real life, they'll like come up to me like, oh my God, like Desi, what's up? You blocked me on Twitter because I said in like some unhinged thing. But they were just like joking. They didn't like mean it much. They were like, oh, you know what? I was like, okay, well, it's kind of weird, but all right. And people don't think it's much of, people don't think it's a huge deal because it's like, well, you know, I don't do it that often. But the problem is if everybody does it just a little bit, then for the few people online who are in like those e-celeb positions that have to deal with it, it feels like a lot now.
As a content provider with his new paradigm of empathy and understanding other people's experiences and still providing entertainment and meaning and purpose. So I thought this would be a good example of this sort of thing because it almost never happens, right? You know, you've all heard of, or even you know someone maybe who is a bigot, right? Well, we want obviously that person to not be a bigot anymore. And the typical way of reacting to them is through hatred and anger and attacking that person. And maybe...
Why do you think Aspen called you a sex pest yesterday? Before that, he would always defend you on that issue, saying that he will wait for your case concluding. Your unhingedness cost of credibility. One, he's already said this about me in the past, so he lied when he said he's never said that before. Number one. Number two, I consider what you just said to be a form of almost like social blackmail or extortion. If you think I'm a sex pest or a rapist or whatever, well then fucking say it. I'm not going to sit here and like, well, as long as you're nice to me, I'm not going to make this accusation. Like, if you think a thing, then just say the thing. Like, why the fuck would I? Like, I think that admitting something like that, in my mind, I think is actually incredibly fucking embarrassing. So you're saying that you might have had like these like really negative impressions of me, or you think that I'm guilty of something or whatever, but you just weren't saying it before. Why? Because I was being nice to you. But now that I'm no longer being nice to you, now you're gonna, no, that's cucked. That's absolutely cucked behavior. All right.
Is a bigot, right? Well, we want obviously that person to not be a bigot anymore. And the typical way of reacting to them is through hatred and anger and attacking that person. And maybe they deserve some of that, but that's not usually what changes the person, right? It often just makes them worse. And we have seen that in other content.
You didn't want to talk with Asmongold in person. What?
And everything. Yeah, I didn't know Destiny was in Florida. There's a good chance I might be going to Florida soon. So
I want to do like an online. I want to do an online thing. I want to be able to sit down. We're both streamers. We both sit for like 3 hours a day. I want to have a conversation back and forth. It's like, oh yeah, we have differences of opinion. We can talk, and that's so good. No, I want to be able to sit at our computers and participate. Okay, you think that the left does the same stuff that like Elon Musk? Show me. Let's go find articles and let's sit here and read them. Okay, we both stream for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever. Let's just sit here and do it. Let's go and read it. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to do. And after that, you want to do like real life podcasts, whatever? Sure, that's fine. Oh, I mean, he never came to Florida anyway, so I mean, fuck it. I mean, like, if he's not willing to talk to me online, I doubt he would have had this argument in real life either. You do that in person too? Don't care. We can do it online. We can do it on our computers. We can do it right now. We can do it on our computers right now. I'm not going to risk another type of conversation. That's so easy. There's literally no reason to do it in person right now. There's zero reason whatsoever to do it. There's zero reason. There's no reason. There's no compelling reason. I probably would have if he would have come down. But I think my guess is at the time I felt like he was just saying this to dodge any like immediate conversation, which he most likely was. And he never came to Florida anyway, so.
Content providers, people like Joe Rogan, is the person, right? It often...
He specifically said he wants to talk in person, but not about politics. Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Just makes them worse. And we have seen that in other content.
Oh, shit. That might be it, too. That was around the time when in person, because at Bridges, I was getting really pissed off with fucking Bridges because I shouldn't say pissed off, but it was very irritating because it was hard to confront anybody in real life because people were really polite or because people would pull out the unstoppable. Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard about this thing or I'm not entirely sure. And the last thing I want is to have a snake fuck like Asmongold in person where he's just like, oh, I don't know about that or I'm not sure. Or, I've never heard of that. Or it's like, no. Okay, well, hold on. Let's just go over it. Let's just look at it right now. If you're willing to talk in person, we should be able to talk online. That's easier, right? Yeah. Fuck that. Yeah, I understand.
usually what changes the person, right? It often just makes them worse. And we have seen that in other content providers, people like Joe Rogan, for example. So if we're going to actually get what we want, what my political side wants, it has to be through love. It has to be through understanding and empathy, giving people a second chance. People who exhibit that they want a second chance, we have to give them that chance. Otherwise, no one else will repent. No one else will apologize. No one else will make that choice that iDubbbz made, which was to say, oh my God, I was a bigot. That was horrible. I apologize. I feel bad. If we don't help someone like that, then why would anyone else do it in the future? I'm really passionate about that, again, for personal reasons, but also for the greater good of society, which is the whole purpose of my career.
If wanting someone to suffer and enjoying that in front of them is abnormal behavior, then why is bullying so common, and why are bullies not usually social outcasts? So I only went to one high school, so I can't generalize to everybody's high school experience. And I always kind of wondered if, because I was very lucky that I got to go to a private high school, thank God, literally, so maybe my high school experience was incredibly atypical, but in my high school experience, there weren't very many bullies. Most people were generally pretty nice to most people. There were a couple of like bully-ish people, but those people were always the social outcasts. Like nobody liked, I can think of a few in grade school especially, who were just kind of like mean assholes. Nobody liked that person. Like all of the jocks at my school were pretty nice to pretty much everybody. Like maybe the worst is that I guess maybe they perceive somebody as being kind of like a nerd or whatever. Maybe they just wouldn't talk to them, but nobody's going to like bully anybody. Also, you just don't interact with them that much too, especially because even in freshman year, when you start having like honors courses and stuff, you're just in different classes and everything too. So, but I don't know, maybe in other high schools, maybe it's not the same. I'm not sure.
I decided to become a therapist in large part because I wanted to make the world a better place in that way. Going back to my notes, Ian and Anissa were both being heavily bullied. Before, during, and after the apology, people were saying things like, you know, iDubbbz, his apology was fake. He's a grifter. He doesn't really care about anybody. He's always been a bigot. He still is a bigot. Or other people saying Anissa is like a Yoko Ono, manipulating him from behind the scenes, that Ian is pussy whipped, this kind of stuff. Or Anissa is a slut because she has an OnlyFans, and Ian is a cuck for even allowing Anissa to have an OnlyFans. If you know, you know, and it's way worse than even I'm describing it. And these aren't just random a-holes on the internet that are rare. This was the dominant discourse around the two of them. So when I was interacting with Ian and Anissa, both on their podcast, my podcast, and off microphone, I noticed that Ian was deeply unsure of himself, and he was deeply ashamed. It was almost like he was cocooning after realizing what he had done, and also experiencing the amount of vitriol that he had been experiencing, both from his long-term haters, but also even his own fans, right? Not only experienced the regular sort of criticism, but even his own fans hated him, that kind of thing. So he was, in a very raw way, questioning everything, and also just questioning whether or not he would ever make content again. He was still making some content, but it was...
Were you ever bullied or beaten up at any point in school? Like, kind of, but I would say that like the bullying was like there were people that like, it was like friend groups fighting with other friend groups, kind of. So like I can think of a few kind of dramatic confrontations, but we were all kind of in the same larger group. Like you'd have like a large group, and then you have like your mini kind of groups in the group, and then sometimes people in the groups would be like fighting with each other. But it was never like, oh my God, there's this guy who plays football who bullies all the kids in calc or something, or like, oh, like that would just, I don't know, you'd never even cross paths.
And also,
but I was also an MS-13 gang member at the time, so maybe that's why I was protecting
his own fan-term haters, but also even his own fans, right? Not only...
Who is worse, Asman or Hassan, when it comes to impact on Twitch viewers and politics? Oof, that's a really hard one. If anything, I would say maybe Asman right now, just because he's like a larger figure. But both are bad in very, very, very similar ways, in that they aren't interested in what is true and honest. They both have a disdain for liberalism and democracy. Hassan plays a lot more meta games to kind of destroy political opposition, whereas Asmongold kind of like sticks to himself. So maybe Hassan is worse there. Yeah, I don't know.
After realizing what he had done, and also experiencing the amount of vitriol that he had been experiencing, both from his long-term haters, but also even his own fans, right? Not only experienced the regular sort of criticism, but even his own fans hated him, that kind of thing. So he was, in a very raw way, questioning everything, and also just questioning whether or not he would ever make content again. He was still making some content, but it was more safe for, right, the podcast or an unboxing video or something. And he wondered if he could ever make videos again without it devolving into toxicity and bigotry and hatred, and without it involving the kind of toxicity that happens from the audience, that kind of thing. Or without him 10 years later regretting harming people in that video, right? He was really ashamed deeply ashamed and deeply unsure of himself. And by the way, I asked him today if it was okay that I talked about all this, and he said, yeah, you have full license, talk about whatever you want to. So after learning a lot about his life and the sort of things that Ian and Anissa had been experiencing, and also learning about what sort of content he had been making prior, I was suggesting that he start thinking about, if he wanted to, how to make content cop videos that were from his new paradigm.
That's one has to be worse. Surely he's subtly supporting Trump, which is worse than anything any lefty can do. I mean, the lefties subtly supported Trump as well. It's a two-party system, and when you don't support one side, and when you don't support one side, you're basically giving support to the other side. Maybe not as much because you're not telling people to vote for the other side, but you're taking away a vote from the only side that can compete with them. So
maybe they wouldn't be called content cop videos, but they would be in his voice that he had developed over time and that the audience was hoping from him again, right? And I was, probably just a minor element of the story for him, the story that he's been on, the therapy and his relationship with Anissa has been very therapeutic for him and Anissa, and just all the ups and downs and trying to figure out how he fits into the creator world. And, I'm just a tiny part of it, but I do remember having that hope that he could come out of this on the other side with a new perspective, a new foundation, start experimenting with his new perspective in a way that could be a force for good. So along those lines, when Ian recently, a couple weeks ago, texted me and said that he was working on a content cop video that he wanted me to be involved in, and I was curious as to what the video was going to be about, and so he told me what it was going to be about, and he showed me some footage of Ethan bullying him and Anissa during some of his live streams. And
do you think Asmongold doesn't want to debate because his paying handlers, Musk, etc., would have an issue with platforming your takes? No, I think he doesn't want to debate because he knows he wouldn't be able to. He would get demolished. It would look really bad. And he's super audience captured and very bought into his current political narrative. Like, the amount of cognitive dissonance that would be introduced to him to have to rewrite so much shit, it would be impossible.
And I agreed to do it because I wanted to support my friends, Anissa and Ian, but also because I wondered if I might be able to, in my small way, enter into the conversation with Ethan, that maybe I could influence the message that would be sent to Ethan. Not that I would manipulate Ian's video or anything, but that my vibe or way might, get to Ethan somehow, because what I was seeing from the clips that Ian was sending me, it very much seemed like Ethan was struggling deeply. This is what Ian was talking about in the Content Cop video, where I said to Ian, it kind of looks like he just needs a hug. And what I meant by that was, he seems like he's struggling. When we're struggling and we are terrified and we...
Wait, hold on. My step is supposed to get here today. They're supposed to knock on my door, okay?
we are in a chronic state of fear, we are going to say things that we wouldn't normally. We're going to think and believe things and see things through a lens that we wouldn't normally. And often those people need love, get away from the fear if possible, so that they can return to baseline. And we can't take what they're saying seriously, or we have to put it within that context. As an analogy, when you have a child, the analogy I always give is you're teaching your daughter how to ride a bicycle, and you're holding on to the seat as you're trotting alongside of her, and she turns to you and says, "Let go, I want to do it on my own, I want to do it on my own." And you're like, "Okay." And you let go, and she goes for a while, and you're going, "Yay." And then she crashes, and she falls down, and she skins her knee, and you run up, and you're trying to help her, and she screams at you, "Why did you let go of my seat?" Well, in that moment, we as parents don't yell at the kid and say, "You told me to let go of the seat, you jerk face." We don't do that. We understand. When people are going through something, they're going to believe and say things that they wouldn't normally, right? Well, that applies to anyone of any age. That doesn't excuse things, but it explains things and provides a treatment. It provides a path to help them. If you actually are interested in helping Ethan or helping to divert his pathway, whatever that's on, and the influence that he has, then love and understanding is the answer. Not that I'm just like, oh, everything's about love, but it works. And it feels better, and it feels more logical, and I sleep better at night. So I was hoping possibly that he might get...
There's a thing that... One of the things that I don't like about the fact that so many people's like traumas and everything comes out on when it comes to, I guess, politics is it's hard to say, like, everything this guy is giving for advice is really good advice for a friend or family member for trying to, change their mind on something or to move somebody off of some kind of problematic position, maybe, sure. But it's a lot different when the people that you're supposed to be showing love and care and compassion and everything to are so diametrically opposed to you politically and then are actively involved in trying to annihilate you because of those political differences. That makes these things significantly more challenging. I don't know what the right answer is there. Like, I think that burden is unrealistic. Most people are not going to be I'm not generally willing to shoulder that. If somebody is like negatively is advocating for things that are like leading to the destruction of groups of people, it's like, okay, well, we need to be very loving about them. And then meanwhile, these are the most hateful and disgusting, like Asmongold, right? The most hateful, disgusting people in the world. It's like, Jesus, I don't know, man. That's a tall order.
Get some of that message. And the way that it looked to me was that, again, Ethan was struggling with really a classic case of fear and paranoia. He had started with legitimate fears about Israel, Palestinians, Jewish people in general, his wife, his extended family, that sort of. His fears were totally justified and legitimate. Then, seemingly, I wasn't there for this progression, but, and actually talking with Ian, he confirmed this path, that seemingly Ethan did not have an approach to managing his mental state and his contact with the news cycle and the comments. When this sort of thing is happening, how much news do you consume? How many if you're a content provider, do you read all the comments? Do you read the entire subreddits, that kind of thing? And he seemed to have an approach that he just absorbs all that constantly. And this is what Ian was getting at in his content cop video, was that his employees are maybe even encouraged by him to feed him everything, and maybe even especially the hatred, because that's what gives him fuel to talk.
Hold on. Okay. Let me rewind this for a minute. Okay. Ask me about Asmon after this, okay? No more, okay? I need to listen, because this is completely off a different topic. Okay.
That he might get some of that message. And the way that it looked to me was that, again, Ethan was struggling with really a classic case of fear and paranoia. He had started with legitimate fears about Israel, Palestinians, Jewish people in general, his wife, his extended family, that sort of. His fears were totally justified and legitimate. Then, seemingly, I wasn't there for this progression, but, and actually talking with Ian, he confirmed this path, that seemingly Ethan did not have an approach to managing his mental state and his contact with the news cycle and the comments. When this sort of thing is happening, how much news do you consume? How many if you're a content provider, do you read all the comments? Do you read the entire subreddits, that kind of thing? And he seemed to have an approach that he just absorbs all that constantly. And
okay. Fuck. I don't know if I'll watch this whole video because it's long, but I feel like I might owe it to this guy. I don't think I've ever heard this guy say anything really dumb, and I appreciate most of his takes. I don't know if he understands the dynamic that he stepped into here, but if you've ever dated a woman or been near women, okay, PMS is a very real thing. It is very real, and for some people, it can have a very significant impact on, aside from, cramping and everything else. Oh, that's more your period, I guess. Like the hormonal changes can have a significant impact on your emotional state. And any woman that has like huge emotional swings on her period, everyone's a little different, will be able to tell you this. If I had just like beat the shit out of my girlfriend or wife, and after beating the shit out of her, she wants to come and have a conversation about this, and then I start giving her these huge lectures about how your period can make you more emotional. Now, I know I said earlier I don't like the weaponization of therapy language, and I do believe that, but this genuinely feels like crazy making. This really does. You're winding somebody up so fucking hard, and then after you've wound them the fuck up as much as possible, now you're going to talk about, oh, I don't think you're dealing with internet comments well. Like, let's be clear, okay? Ethan's issue was he feels like he didn't have any support from his friends, like Ian. Ian felt like Ethan was being ridiculous to say that just because he wouldn't say anything publicly about it. And the whole time Ethan had those feelings, Ian is essentially accusing him of being overly paranoid and reading too much into the comment section while simultaneously working with all of the worst people on the internet who are the chief architects of all of the snarker drama and all of the worst things about Ethan being spread on the internet at that point in time. Like, Ian's content cop proved, or rather disproved, Ethan's paranoia. Because I don't know if you would call it paranoia when the paranoia is real. Worse than what Ethan ever, because I imagine in Ethan's mind, the worst thing that could have been happening was Ian probably was just friends with these people and didn't want to say shit and agreed with them. I doubt that Ethan thought, I'm sure Ian is working on a content cop about me. So every thought that Ethan had, in my mind, would be fully justified by Ian making a content cop on him. In a time, I put this on Twitter, In a time where you've got right-wing content creators coming back on every platform, Asmongold is the largest politics streamer on Twitch. Twitter is just the Nazi zone, okay? Facebook, Instagram Reels, like everything. There's so much right-wing content fucking everywhere. You've got all of these figures now. Your Charlie Kirks and all these guys are like larger than life, sometimes like even involved in the current administration. And now we're making a content cop on H3H3? On Ethan Klein? What? What the fuck? Like, come on.
This is what Ian was getting at in his content cop video, was that his employees are maybe even encouraged by him to feed him everything, and maybe even especially the hatred, because
that's bullshit. That's 100% bullshit. And I'm just going to assume that he just doesn't know enough about how these things work, or know enough about the background of all of these content. The goal in calling out the employees is just to isolate Ethan and to give the employees an off-ramp. Oh my God, you guys are probably being treated so poorly by him, I bet, right? I bet it's so horrible. Like, we would never do that to you. Like, oh, I'm sure that you guys aren't at fault here. Really, it's the evil Kleins are making you do all this. If Ian wanted to take that angle, there are so many other ways that he could have done it, and it wouldn't be where a video is starting with all of the worst people in Ethan's life saying, "Wake up, Ethan! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up, Ethan!"
What gives him fuel to talk about online? Well, that will do a number on your soul. It's going to affect you. It's going to infect you if you don't have a way of pushing back on it. So he gets more hurt, more angry, more fearful, and becomes more black and white thinking, more reactive. He starts to fight back. Initially, it's probably somewhat justified, maybe sometimes crossing the line. Then those people hear that and they attack back, and more random people are attacking, some of which are justified, but some of which is not, and over the top, and racist and anti-Semitic. And then it creates this feedback loop where he gets funneled all that. He has no approach to pushing back. He gets more terrified, more worried, more convinced that the straw man is out there that he's built up in his mind. And he gets more worried, more terrified, more angry, more hostile. That's what he knows how to do. And he goes after them and has spontaneous reactions on his live streams and doesn't seem to have any approach to how to manage what he says other than the button, right? And no one around him seems to be able to or interested in helping him with this. Meanwhile, Ethan's mental state is declining and declining and declining. And then at some point, he hears, as Ian talks about in the content cop video, that this random editor with a very small following says something really horrible towards Ethan. And Ethan is fed this information, as he's fed almost everything that his people or Ethan himself can find on the internet. I mean, Ethan reads the snark subreddit for H3, which I just find just patently unhealthy for him. There's just no...
But the problem is that all the people in these side communities will amplify these subreddits. It's not just like the reason why you read the snark subreddit is so that you know what Hassan and all of them are going to be saying about you the next day. And that's exactly what happens. It's exactly what all of these people do. Hold on. Bloop, 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 bloop. All right, here, listen to this for a sec.
A way that can be helpful to him. So he is seeing that this person is saying a toxic thing. He also learns that that person used to work for iDubbbz or might currently, and then he thinks, oh, iDubbbz, I thought he was a friend, and he's not speaking out against that person. And because I'm in such a state of fear and paranoia, and I don't use that word lightly, not because he started that way, but because of the non-management of what he was exposed to. And you just think about what's been happening over the past year and a half for Ethan. Through his paranoia, he interprets that, learning about that toxic thing that someone who used to be associated with Ian before, as evidence that Ian and Anissa are secretly against him. And that hurts him. It makes him feel afraid. This is not the first time this has happened for him in all likelihood. There have probably been other times when it might have been more confirmed or there was better data indicating that someone that he thought he could trust, he couldn't really actually trust, right? Not only could he not trust that person, but that those people were actually a very harmful, scary element in his life, calling CPS on him and supporting that or whatever, right? And you just think about that, right? That when that happens, then when it starts to come into your house, from what I understand, the CPS workers actually entered the house to conduct an investigation. So Ethan goes off on Ian and Anissa on the air again, because his style is spontaneous and off the cuff, and there's no guardrails except for that button, which isn't really a guardrail. It just kind of gives, as Ian was pointing out, him more freedom to just say whatever and think. And that's what Ian was getting at in the content cop video, was that it seems like Ethan has no boundary or editor in his mind, and the button actually was a solution to a problem that made the problem worse. Because as a content provider, even if you're an edgy comedian online, there has to be some line, some concern about how you're affecting other people, right? Some empathy, right? You'll have an impulse to say something and you think, well, it seems kind of funny and appropriate now, but if I were in someone else's shoes, what effect would that have on someone? I probably shouldn't go that far, right? It's not that you're being disingenuous and not saying the truth. You're incorporating the bigger picture. And if you don't have that inside of you, then you're just going to speak completely from whatever just happens to emerge for you impulsively. And Ian made a great case for that. So again, I agreed to be in the video, and he came over to my house and to my home recording studio, and we recorded. This is footage from that. And we talked for over 3 hours. And
Fuck. Okay. I don't want to I don't want to get all this up too much, but just as a quick example of this. So one of the things that I brought up before, okay, because people I hate bringing up this name because I'm going to talk about it for 2 days now. So I would bring up on Gisticle's Discord server, right? So what they'll do is, and what all these communities do, the reason why people read these snark things is because other side communities will take everything from there and then they'll repost it and they'll play stupid. So I think Gisticle on his stream was like, what? We don't do any of this. What are you talking about? Side Discord servers? What? Who? What do you even? No one even does anything, right? So Kelly, for instance, who's now permabanned on her Discord account, as she should be, has been running around making all these side Discords, right? Everybody making a new general to wipe this Discord because people keep getting reported, lol, because they're just they do insane unhinged shit on all these servers. And then they talk about going through oh yeah, me and Jews have been doing a ton of bans on other accounts because we don't know who these people are. And the reason why they do this is just so that they can repost and talk all this insane shit every single day for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But they do it enough so that it gets filtered up through the larger streamers, and then you have your Gisticles and your Queemans that re-report it for my stuff, and then it gets picked up by commentary people. And that's kind of how the funnel works. Kelly is talking about, I don't really want to post this, I don't want to give links to everything, but Kelly's talking, so she's talking about my girlfriend and how my girlfriend deserves all the bad shit that Kelly is obsessed with saying about her. And then Kelly's just talking about all of the different gossip forums, including Kiwi Farms and other places where she's reading and getting the information from. And it's what the fuck? But she's saying this in a side Discord server that she doesn't know that I know exists. And it doesn't show up as evidently in the Gisticle server, although it's hard to say because now every single person there will delete all of their messages at the end of every single day to keep it untraceable or whatever, which they've been doing for over a month now. But that's just in regards to my stuff personally, but it's also it works in regards to this stuff as well. These weird, I don't know if it's a new thing or not. Maybe at this scale it's a new thing. I don't know, but these weird anti-fan places will pop up where there are these people who are obsessed with writing a certain story or narrative about somebody, and then when they do it, all the other communities will pick the information up and then it proliferates from there basically. But somehow all of these side communities pretend that it's not what's happening, basically, and it's so to be oh, I can't believe that Ethan would read this stuff, it's not healthy. Well, it's going to show up in a Hassan video probably in 2 weeks anyways,
This is in the video, and he came over to my house and to my home recording studio, and we recorded. This is footage from that, and we talked for over 3 hours. And I, at some point, said, I think we should probably cut this off. And we were having a really in-depth conversation. There were a lot of ups and downs.
Can you give me the long on Kelly being banned from Discord? There was some weird child porn thing that popped up with Gisticle's server, I think a couple months ago. It was after they couldn't obsessively talk about my stuff as much, something weird happened, and a bunch of people in the server either got banned or left the server. I don't know exactly what happened. And Kelly, I think, was one of those accounts. RIP. But I don't have all the details for that shit.
I, at some point, said, I think we should probably cut this off. And we were having a really in-depth conversation. There were a lot of ups and downs. And so when I handed over all of the footage, I just gave it to him. I was thinking I wasn't going to be in the video because I was thinking, how in the world, in his style, how could he use anything that we said in that video? Because it was so slow and, in my yammering way.
I see a lot of people argue that it's hypocritical for you to criticize the use or mention of Kiwi Farms when you've used it heavily in the past. Would you say that your position on the usage of KF has changed, or is there another to take? My stance has never changed. People just like to pretend that it has changed when it has never changed. If you want to talk shit about people on the internet, be it Kiwi Farms or some other place, I think you should have a right to do that. And trying to take websites like that down by attacking the registrars or attacking via credit card companies, I don't think that's necessarily I don't think that's a good thing. I think if you want to make it illegal, then pass a law or try to do something like that. But like my stance on that has always been the same. I still feel the same way about that. But people are in this weird world where they're like, oh, you think this person should have the right to say this thing? That must mean that you agree with it and you don't hate it. No, what? That's fucking retarded. Like, I can defend somebody's right to say something and still think that what they say is disgusting and gross. Like, that's, I don't, like, it's retarded.
It was in that video because it was so slow and, you know, in my yammering way, it was slow paced and emotional and vulnerable and nuanced. And I just thought, I can't imagine he's going to use any of that. And I even told him, I said,
is he saying the content cop was nuanced and no way, right?
probably cut this off. And we were having a really in-depth conversation. There were a lot of ups and downs.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's talking about the conversation they had. Okay.
And so when I handed over all of the footage, I just gave it to him. I was thinking I wasn't going to be in the video because I was thinking, how in the world, in a content, in his style, how could he use anything that we said in that video? Because it was so slow and, you know, in my yammering way, it was slow-paced and emotional and vulnerable and nuanced. And I just thought, I can't imagine he's going to use any of that. And I even told him, I said, if you don't use any of this footage, I'm not going to be insulted. Or if you use like 3 seconds, you know, whatever. And I trusted him. And I didn't want to give him the impression that I didn't trust him because I didn't want to poison the well in that way. I wanted him to go for it. I knew I was taking a risk, but I knew enough of him to trust that at the very least it wouldn't be negative for me. And that approach is something that I learned as a therapist, not only in practice, but also theoretically, that people behave the way that you treat them, the way that you believe in them. Either way, right? If you treat them poorly and don't believe in them, then they tend to behave in ways that are problematic, sometimes to you. But if you believe in people and you say, I know that you can do the right thing, I believe in you, then across the board, and this is demonstrated through empirical observation, that people will behave in more responsible, empathetic, non-problematic ways. Not all the time, but it has a huge effect on people. And that believing in Ian does not mean disbelieving in Ethan or vice versa. So I thought I would actually watch a few clips from the over 3-hour conversation that I...
Content Cop was still a net positive for Hassan. Many normies trending against H3. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not too sure about that.
So I thought I would actually watch a few clips from the...
One thing that this guy's doing, and I don't know, I'm not a therapist, obviously, and maybe this is more par for the course, I guess, for his content. I feel like there's like a... I feel like there is a... like a cardinal sin that's being committed here of taking one side of the story and then allowing somebody to utilize that for... like a YouTube video. I would be super afraid of a therapist, or as a therapist, if I was a therapist, of somebody doing that. Like, hey, well, let's talk about this other guy. Let's talk about all his problems from your perspective, from your frame of reference, and then I'm going to tell you my thoughts on it, and then you can use that for your video. That seems really iffy to me, but...
over 3-hour conversation that I had with Ian.
This is dipping my toes in a very, there's a lot of controversial topics.
Although also, but I can kind of see maybe... Fuck. Did he say if he knew this was going to end up in a content cop, or did he say he wasn't sure it was going to end up in a content cop? Because to take a 3-hour, I guess he said, right? A huge conversation like this, and then for Ian to cut a few minutes of it, he said he did know, and to put in a content cop, that's really fucking weird, but...
With Ian.
This is dipping my toes in a very, there's a lot of controversial topic.
Like, I wonder if he thought the content cop was going to be way, way, way different than what it actually was, given the conversation they had. Yeah.
With Ian.
This is dipping my toes in a very, there's a lot of controversial topics around it. Ethan's a controversial guy.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'm happy that you're doing it because, you know, jumping back into the deep end, which the internet needs you now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So that's the very beginning of the recording, and that's in line with what I was saying earlier. But the main thing that he wanted me to do when we were meeting was to watch this video that he made. Let's watch that video now.
A couple years ago, Ethan Klein was playing a video clip of Cutie Cinderella, a fellow streamer, crying about a very traumatic situation she was going through involving Atrioc and this whole deepfake porn situation. And Ethan Klein very stupidly played a comedic soundbite, and he just lost it. You know, he was cackling. Ethan recognized that it was not a good thing to do, so he pretty quickly apologized.
If I had known that the whole video was concluding on me changing the grade, I still would have refused to change my grade, but I would have done it in a much more careful way.
Okay.
Because I thought that he was just experimenting with different elements of the content cop video. I thought I was going to be one of hundreds of possible things that he would put in, and I thought...
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. This makes more sense. I was going to say, that'd be kind of wild that he would agree to that, yeah. But okay, makes more sense.
Since I didn't change the grade, I wouldn't even make it in the video. And I asked him about it, actually, today, and he said that he thought I was going to change the grade, and that when I didn't change the grade, he had to completely rewrite the ending, the epilogue to that hour-long content cop video. And he had to, and maybe influenced, to make it more positive. And then he reached out to all those content providers for them to all say something nice in light of what I had done.
Wait, what?
And I asked him about it actually today, and he said that he thought I was going to change the grade, and that when I didn't change the grade, he had to completely rewrite the ending, the epilogue to that hour-long content cop video. And he had to, and maybe influenced, to make it more positive. And then he reached out to all those content providers for them to all say something nice in light of what I had done. and I thought, oh my God. I mean, it is what I was hoping. I mean, not that specifically, but that message I was hoping to influence, I didn't realize.
So the compliment segment was fucking fake? Yeah, true. Also, isn't it weird? Who spent the most time with Ethan of all the people in that video? Probably his ex-podcast co-host Hassan. Notice how Hassan didn't have anything. He didn't have a single nice thing to say about Ethan. Why not? Kind of weird.
Realize I would be that pivotal. I didn't realize I was, I can imagine for him being quite disappointed after.
Okay, never mind. This makes way more sense. He had no fucking idea what exactly he was signing up for in this video. This makes more sense. Yeah. Because I was going to say, I'm trying to imagine you're having this huge, in-depth, 3-hour therapy-esque conversation. And then you see the content coming out, you're like, oh, fuck.
That pivotal. I didn't realize I was, I can imagine for him being quite disappointed after we had that 3-hour conversation. We hung out afterwards as well, the four of us, Stacey and Anissa and Ian and I, and just, shot the shit.
He pretty quickly apologized. Now, that apology was pretty well recognized as a good apology amongst the non-experts, but the experts also weighed in. I mean, as much as you can be an expert in apologies, it's not like an official title or anything, but Dr. Kirk Honda weighed in. Now, Ethan was able to hit most, if not all, the points on this grading scale. Basically, this resulted in Ethan getting an A+ apology. You could say that I'm salty because I got a B+.
The other thing that he showed me, and when we were watching this video a couple weeks ago, I asked him, what is this? Did you put together this graphic that has all my apology video grades? Because there was a point a while back where I wanted to actually go back and watch all my apology videos and write down all the grades that I'd given because I had forgotten.
Oh my God.
Because in some later apology videos, I would be referring to past apologies, and I wanted to be able to contrast grades and the rubric that I used.
Kind of sneaky with this.
And I asked him, I said, did you make this? That's amazing. And he's like, no. H3, Ethan Klein and his people or his fans or something put together this web page, and each is a clickable thing to take you to my video, and it's heavily featured on the H3 podcast or the fan site, I can't remember which, because of how often Ethan talks about it and how vindicating or how praising it is to Ethan, because he is the only one that has maybe even received an A.
The apology, in my opinion, has just served to boost his ego and kind of give him an out.
He rated my apology.
So he was so the whole reason, I wonder if, there's not an hour left. I wonder if he gets, or if he understands this, or maybe the understanding is coming, or was already here before filming it. The only reason why he was brought into this video was literally to be weaponized. I feel like that's like the perfect encapsulation of my tirade against Ian, where I'm like, I hate it that you guys pretend to care about therapy or all this bullshit when really you just weaponize it. You're just like, oh, go to therapy, to try to crazy make somebody, basically. You're trying to make people feel like they can't have a legitimate grievance with you. They must need therapy or something, is emotionally broken with them. And so to add on to that, he literally just brought this therapist guy, one of the most famous ones on the internet, I think, that does stuff like this, just to weaponize him against Ethan. Jesus.
The apology, in my opinion, has just served to boost his ego and kind of give him an out.
He rated my apology to Cutie Cinderella a perfect score, a perfect 10.
A perfect 10 out of 10?
Literally 10 out of 10. Go back. I can teach you how to make a good apology. I'm the best
10 out of 10.
I know what a perfect apology is, lady.
When Ethan initially had talked about my video, my apology analysis of him, people were sending me the link. Like, oh my God, Ethan talked about you. Because people know that I'm a small-time YouTuber, and so they're just like, do you know that a famous person is talking about you? And I took it that way. And I think maybe there was another time that people were saying, but I just thought that was it. But watching this mashup of all these little clips, I asked Ian, I was like, does he really talk about my grade this often? And Ian said, yes, and the stuff I'm showing you right now is a small portion of the amount of times that he refers to your grade of his apology, which was interesting and flattering, I will say, and I think deserved. It was a good apology. If you didn't watch the apology, watch it or watch my analysis of it. Oof. But it was very long, very authentic in his way, very off the cuff, and very acknowledging of the harm. It was way beyond. And I would say that Ian was a close second, as evidenced by that graphic we saw in which he's the only B, right? I think that not only should someone be rewarded for a very rare thing, which is to, in my book, demonstrate very strongly a lot of the core components of an effective apology. But also, I think that Ethan, as other content providers, like Ian himself, are almost never given positive feedback. And so anyone saying something positive, I would imagine, would be emotionally very important to him.
You fucking don't. Is my perfect apology in this PowerPoint?
Dude, I got a perfect 10 out of 10.
This one is actually best apology, so.
Ethan Klein, you guys, oh my God.
Okay, so if you don't know, they reached out to me, he reached out to me to participate in the Steamies.
It's especially gross to this too, like if you think about this, because if somebody makes a good apology, right, and they've demonstrated that they understand some wrong, they're showing genuine contrition, they're showing a genuine desire to change, they've already taken some steps to remedy, however they've hurt a person, and supposedly, right, Ian just wants Ethan to change his ways and to be a better person. For him to try to claw that back, what the fuck? It's like completely contrary, you would imagine, to anything that you're supposedly trying to accomplish. No? Like, what the fuck?
Was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember. And they wanted me to submit an award granting to him in the style of the Steamies. And so I gave them a couple options of videos and they showed it. And so that's what's happening here.
Psychology in Seattle would not be giving this a good rating. In fact, I look forward to him rating it. Probably get pretty low marks.
And yeah, I didn't react to that apology video. I probably just didn't have the time.
And I think that it's more than appropriate for Dr. Kirk Honda to fucking adjust his apology rating, because that's horseshit. So Kirk, this is your opportunity. Ethan has been flaunting this A everywhere.
So I almost am glad that it happened.
Psychology in Seattle.
Yes, I'm just kidding. If you get an A+ apology, it's almost better. I'm glad I said what I said.
Now, I suppose some people would accuse me of kowtowing to Ethan because I'm getting free publicity every time he talks about it, and if I were to rescind that, I would lose that opportunity. That has not occurred to me. Maybe it's in the back of my mind, that's possible. But I learned a long time ago that that kind of publicity, and even the publicity that I'm getting from being an iDubbbz content cop video, doesn't really translate into followership or money for me. I learned that a long time ago because when you cast a really wide net, you get a lot of different sorts of people, and very few of them would be interested in my kind of content.
And in a way, if you want to be like silver lining, it's kind of good that it happened.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but...
Give this guy a fucking taste. Now, we're getting out of apology territory, but I need to just get some shit out to sweeten the deal for you, Kirk. He used to be the hero.
Okay, so I think this is the portion of the video that is just for me, that's not intended to be in the content cop video. And keep in mind that at this point, Ian is hoping and planning on me changing the grade.
I see you out there, you fucking cockroach.
So now that my presentation is over, I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Kirk Honda to give us a professional opinion, and maybe, if we're lucky, there might be some amendment to Ethan Klein's, perfect apology. Because I don't think this is a perfect apology.
Every time Cutie gets an opportunity to shit on me, she takes it without a batting or
I don't know if that's... What is Cutie? I don't think this is Ludwig. They're separate people.
Right. Is it a perfect apology? I don't know if I've used that word. Maybe I have, but that doesn't feel like what I was saying or want to say. I just want to put out there that his apology had all the components that I'm looking for in a public apology and more. So that's an A+. That's all it means. Now, I don't know if you're catching this context, but this is a pretty good zinger to have at the end of this video that's meant for me, that he is later after the apology to the person that he transgressed upon, Ethan is saying questionable, problematic things that his producer is pushing back on, which is what he often is having to do for Ethan. No, you're interpreting that wrong. And I'll tell you that in a way, I can very much relate to this. I've talked about this before, that I'll get an email or a comment or someone will talk about me online, and it'll initially get me very hurt and afraid, and then I get very angry, and I go to Stacy to either I know I should check in with her or I'm just venting, and 9 times out of 10, she'll say, I saw that email too, and I don't think you're interpreting it right. I don't think that's what they were saying. Or I saw that comment, and I think you need to reread that comment. And at first, I'm like, how dare you invalidate me or something. I don't say that, but that's how it feels at first. But again, 9 times out of 10 from there, I find that she's absolutely correct, that I was overreacting. Or just I'll get a text from a friend, and I'll overreact, and I'll ask her, or I'll vent, and she'll be like, I don't think you're getting that right. Or she'll listen really well, as she always does, and I'll calm down, and then I'll realize I probably should question my initial assumption, which happens sometimes. And so there's that function. The difference is I'm not doing it while I'm being recorded. Ethan does it while he's being recorded. People react to that. I mean, if people saw me in that state, there would be a lot of justifiable, especially if I'm publishing it, you know what I mean? Putting it out there, and I don't rescind it right away, which doesn't usually happen anyway. In my person, when I'm venting and stuff, I don't immediately say, oh, you're right, I was wrong. Sometimes it takes me a while, The difference is that Ethan does it on the air, which is hurtful to those that he's talking about. Then they attack him back, and it just creates that feedback loop. That's another element here.
People say Cutie defends me on her podcast with Maya. Well, I've seen lots of clips of her shitting on me, but I guess maybe that was all I saw.
So he is initially being hurtful and assuming bad things about the person that he transgressed on, and then the producer's like, no, she's actually on your side. And that's supposed to, from Ian's point of view, influence me to take the grade back. But this is further confirmation of in this little snippet, and we'll rewind this actually because I think this is important. It demonstrates that for Ethan, this is him after that progression that I talked about a while back, where he gets hurt and afraid, very hurt, very afraid.
As a therapist, I take the client story as serious but not always accurate. I do suss out what seems to be true and decide what to challenge at the time and what not to. Sure. I feel like I'm not a therapist, so I'm just off the cuff here. In a perfect world, I would say that it's not a therapist's job to necessarily challenge the underlying facts of anything that a client presents you. Patient, not client, sorry. That a patient presents you in a therapy session. I think that's fair. You're just like focusing on like, okay, well, how did this thing make you feel? How did you react to it? How would you want to react to it? Well, how did this all turn out? Or whatever bullshit you talk about. The only scary thing, I guess, or the only thing that sucks is, and I don't even know what the responsibility of the therapist here is. The only thing that sucks is when a person leaves therapy with the goal of weaponizing whatever they got in therapy against the person that they had the problem with. So if they misrepresent a problem to a therapist, the therapist gives them kind of like a tool to deal with it. And the therapist agrees or validates the feelings that a person has about a particular situation, which I think in general our feelings are always valid. People are very quick to transpose the feeling onto the fact. So if I go in and I say, I feel like shit because my partner slapped the shit out of me for no reason. And let's say that that isn't at all what happened. And if the therapist says like, okay, yeah, sure. Now I'm not going to comment on what they did, but it's understandable like why you might feel, however you feel. If people get their feelings validated, I feel like oftentimes they'll take that validation and then they'll go back to the person and say, my therapist said that you treating me like shit and slapping the shit out of me is actually a totally valid reason for me to be upset with you. So fuck you. And then I feel like there's this weird emotional factual transposition that happens. I'm sure there's like a more formal word for that, but it's very, I just hate people that weaponize shit like that. It's so fucking annoying.
Afraid. He initially has some slightly problematic takes and clapbacks, if you will. And he does it off the cuff, and he's absorbing all of the negativity without any filter, seemingly. Then people fight back, right? And then more people fight back in unfair ways to him, right? Because he's already being somewhat unfair. He gets more paranoid, more afraid, more hurt. He gets more upset. Spontaneous. And so down the line, as he comes across that one, I think, tweet or something by one of Ian's former associates, he gets paranoid that, Ian and Issa are against me, right? That's not his typical stance. It's not his typical interpretation of that. It's after months and months of his mental state being harmed by himself. He's doing this to him. I mean, people are doing it to him, but he's doing nothing to prevent it, right? And maybe even he knows it's happening. I don't know. Maybe he knows like, this is good for ratings. You always have to come up with something to say. And I really feel bad for content providers like Ethan who don't have something like me where I have a professional training aspect that I can always talk about, right? I can provide.
That's one of the reasons I personally think it is not a good idea to do couples therapy and only one of the partners is therapy on their own. Wait, what? I feel like couples therapy is really good because then you can hash out like a disagreement or a fight or something literally in front of the therapist. And I feel like the therapist gets a much more holistic understanding of the dynamic. Again, not as a therapist, and I'm not, but like there are a lot of things that I'll hear from somebody and this person seems like super normal, mentally well-adjusted or whatever, and they'll tell me things about their partner, like, okay, yeah, this seems kind of fucked. And then when I see both of them interact, I'm like, okay, hold on. I have a much, much deeper understanding of the fucky weirdness on both sides of this now, okay? Because when you see people together, it's just way different than just getting the story from one person. And it's not always because that one person, by the way, is lying or because they're trying to be malicious or evil. Sometimes we just don't perceive things accurately on our own because we're in our own head about a particular fight or we have our own ways of seeing, a disagreement between us and a partner, especially when partners are involved, so.
Always have to come up with something to say. And I really feel bad for content providers like Ethan who don't have something like me where I have a professional training aspect that I can always talk about, right? I can provide that, only a small percentage of an audience like what he has are interested in, but enough of an audience, I can share that information. Whereas if you're just a guy who people think is kind of funny and interesting, how do you come up with something to say? How do you come up with content? You wake up in the morning and say, well, what do I have to offer? And so you end up just falling into this pattern of, well, what people are interested in is just me flying off the handle, So I think that might be another element. That doesn't release him from responsibility, of course, but I think it's another piece of the context. So let's rewatch this and keep in mind that there's a possibility, I don't know, it's just total speculation on my part, that his mental state has been affected in a way that any of us would be affected by if all of that negativity and hatred and attacking, and a lot of it unfair, because we don't see all of the horribleness that, even if you pay attention, you don't see all the horribleness that he might be absorbing. And then he gets this little hint that maybe, I think her name's QT, the woman that was crying about the deepfake porn, and he was laughing, and then he apologized later, and he gets a little glimpse, and then he's so paranoid, he's such a quick, he's got a real itchy trigger finger, goes after the producer, no, and then you can kind of see the gear.
Yeah, I just don't like him talking about all of this without ever having spoken to Ethan ever, has he? Right? He did a 3-hour convo with Ian, and now he's doing this 1.5-hour video here. Has he ever spoken to Ethan in his entire life? It seems a little like,
Gears turning in his mind. It's like, not only is this assumption not true, but the producer's saying, no, she's on your side, she's supporting you, and that in-group out-grouping is happening. It's like, oh, she's out-group, wait, so she's in-group, and you can see his brain trying to adjust that.
Every time Cutie gets an opportunity to shit on me, she takes it without a batting of
I don't know if that's, what is Cutie? I don't think this is Ludwig. They're separate people.
Oh, people say Cutie defends me on her podcast with Maya? Oh, I've seen lots of clips of her shitting on me, but I guess maybe that was all I saw and not the whole thing.
So that's the end of that video, but I don't know if you see what I'm seeing, but that's what I'm seeing, the way I described it earlier.
Anissa and I have experienced like the same kind of level of harassment. Makes me feel like qualified to talk to him about it because
So I don't know if you noticed that.
But you didn't, and you're not. And you did the worst possible thing that you could have ever done to a person. And you must know that. Like, everything that Ian is saying should make him uniquely qualified to know that this would be the absolute worst way to encourage a friend to change their behavior. I'm going to make a hit piece video on you with all of the people that hate you the most. And it's going to start with all of us flipping you off, telling you to wake up. Like, come on, bro.
But he was on the verge
That's
of
a
crying
joke.
in that moment, or it looked that way to me. So just keep that in mind as we move forward here. But yeah, I think this could help to give Ian credibility in his content cop video that he was at first not wanting to make a content cop video. He wanted to reach out to Ethan and explain and to make up, right? To have their...
Check Asmongold's stream right now. Oh, sorry. We have to go to his alt because...
People that are mean to Frogan for things that I don't...
Right, I don't care about this right now. Hold on.
Their work friendship, so to speak, he was at first not wanting to make a content cop video. He wanted to reach out to Ethan and explain and to make up, right? To have their work friendship, so to speak, reconciled at the very least, and maybe even to result in Ethan publicly rescinding some of the things that he was saying about Ian and Anissa. Not just because Ian and Anissa care, and if you have a friend...
Okay, again, I don't watch H3H3 ever, okay? Except for the clips I get linked. It's just not my style of content. Was Ethan talking a ton of shit about Ian such that he needed to like walk it back, or he should have chilled? Like, I don't think I've never heard Ethan say anything about Ian. Now, clearly he did, so because there's clips I haven't seen before. But was it even that much? No, okay. Do you think people like Hassan pressured Ian to make the content cop? I genuinely don't see why he felt the need. Absolutely, they did a bit, for sure. Hassan probably had a pretty heavy hand in it. I think that's one of the reasons why. It's just a guess, but I think I've earned it at this point, given what Ethan has said about Hassan. I think that's also one of the reasons why, even though there was, I think, a couple of screenshots that looked like people from my suburb or my community, Ian didn't mention me a single fucking time. I bet that was one of the things Hassan told Ian. Whatever you do, don't bring up Destiny. Don't even bring up his community, DGG or whatever. Just call it a subreddit or say this thing. Don't ever, ever, ever bring him up, okay? Hassan probably pushed him quite a bit to make this. I bet he did. I mean, they literally filmed it in Hassan's fucking streaming room, right? And they had all their little friends show up for it and everything, so...
friend, even if it's kind of like a work friend, you don't want them to think wrong things about you that results in them hating you, but also because Ethan is talking shit online, which isn't, they already have enough haters and enough harassment and bullies. They don't, to add to that isn't very happy to think about. So this is him describing it in a more, calm, long manner than he would do in a content video or a content cop.
And makes me feel like qualified to talk to him about it because I feel super empathetic, specifically to to that feeling that everyone is an enemy. I had that feeling very much after my apology. There were loads of people who were...
And I am just so happy. I'm sad that Ian had to go through this, but this was part of the change. And this is the part of the change for everybody, me included. When we go through things or someone close to us is going through things, it gives us a better chance to really feel what it's like to go through that thing. Then when someone else is going through that thing, we have a much greater chance of having empathy for that person. And until that happens, it is hard to have empathy for someone else. Not because we lack empathy, but because it is lost on us why someone is having a reaction that they're having. And Ethan, at least from my understanding, isn't crying on his podcast. He's not talking about the pain and the fear and the terror that he's going through. He's exhibiting the anger, and Ian sees that and understands what's beneath it. And initially was reaching out, even though Ethan was publicly saying horrible things and causing a lot of Ethan's fans to go after Ian and Anissa. What Ian initially felt was empathy, because he had been through that himself. And so that resulted in him seeing Ethan in a...
Do you expect a content cop on you in the future? I don't know.
Passionate light at first, and so he reached out, gave him the benefit of the...
Destiny, answer my question, you coward. What's your question? How can you criticize iDubbbz for platforming Hassan when you were implicitly promoting Lauren Southern, have showing of her docs on stream so you could have an affair with her? How do you know she wasn't trying to have one with me, and that's why she had me show them? Could have been the other way around. You can bring up any person that I've platformed on my stream for any reason. The difference for all of these, whether it's Lauren, whether it's Nick Fuentes, whether it's Yo Mama, whether it's literally anybody at all, okay? The difference is I push back on shit that I disagree with and shit that I should disagree with, on all of it. So you can say whatever you want about anybody that I've platformed, but nobody who's ever watched my content has ever come away from me having a conversation with some person thinking like, oh my God, I think for the Nazis, right? Destiny must be a full-on fucking Nazi. That's crazy that he's a full... Nobody's ever thought this, ever. That's the difference. I don't know how hard it is for you to understand that. It's a pretty simple thing.
The doubt, even though Ethan was giving Ian no reason to do that publicly, the assumption was there because of a common humanity that's understood. And so Ian, and I believe him, and Anissa would talk about this too, that he, behind closed doors, you know, meaning not on the air, it wasn't like he tweeted, hey, Ethan, let's talk, as a public showing of goodwill. He texted him off air, if you will, and Ethan still refused to talk with him, right? Which was hurtful and was aggravating, right? Then you feel like you have no power, you have no voice. And then so Ian dusted off his content cop outfit and said, well, I do have access to a voice, and I'm going to use it since I have no other recourse here.
And make you feel like, you know, there's no winning.
Well, I remember people reacting to your apology video were saying that you were grifting or something, that it was all a lie, and you were trying to trick the audience so that you could, I don't know, what you'd be tricking the audience, because it wasn't necessarily a good career move, you know what I mean?
No, it's been actually terrible for me in making money.
Right, we've talked about it.
Gotten worse.
Yeah, but, you know, it's easier to sleep at night, I hope.
Yeah.
And you're clawing back, you know?
Yeah.
And then other people are saying Anissa is pulling all the strings and you're pussy whipped or whatever.
Totally.
And it's just like...
Not that I'm totally pussy whipped, but they're totally saying that I'm pussy whipped.
Yeah. I think it's kind of romantic to be a little pussy whipped now and then, you know? The little mutual heterosexual pussy dick whip, you know, both ways. But
that pussy dick whip reciprocation or mutual whipping became a theme throughout our 3-hour conversation and after. So I guess that's where it started.
Like, I feel it myself, like this, it's so hard for me on my podcast to like loosen up. It's incredibly hard. And to also then make jokes and be funny. I talked about it in my apology, like I am so insecure about my ability to entertain. I think he feels the same, to be honest. I don't think he said as much, but I feel like, to me, it's pretty obvious by how often he like says crazy fucked up shit, and then also like looks to his producers and employees to be like, was that like a bad thing? Should I button that? Or like, no one's laughing. Like, what, you know, was that funny or not funny?
So we're towards the...
This is a lot of psychoanalysis and projection. Like, I feel like that's also just kind of like a thing that it's like part of the joke, right? But, okay.
Ending of our 3-hour conversation. And at this point...
This is all project... oh, wait. Isn't there something super self-indulgent about recorded therapy with the intent to show others? I think at the end of the day, I've said this a million times, all people really want is to be understood. I think it's one of the most like foundational human things, is to feel like other people understand us. And especially for streamer type people or celebrity type people, your life is so far away from the norm that the feeling could be that having like a kind of a public therapy session gives me a chance to be super raw and honest about how I feel about things. And like nobody else is going to get this, I guess, perspective of me otherwise, so...
I've heard a lot of the background, and we've had a lot of back and forth. Anissa has also been a big part of the conversation. And as he was approaching his thesis, or stating his thesis that he would eventually have in his content cop video, or at least an earlier version of it, I was both curious about what his conceptualization is as to why Ethan would refuse to change or not be self-reflective or to not exhibit empathy. I was curious about that, but I also was asking a question that I often will ask my students, actually, in that they'll talk about a client and they'll say, oh, this client, or maybe more commonly, I'll have a student or a trainee or a supervisee or a consultee who will be talking about a client's partner, right? So my student is saying, yeah, so I have this client and she's talking about her husband and about how much of a jerk face her husband is. And if it seems appropriate to ask or helpful to ask, I might ask a very similar question. Instead of just rolling past that the way we typically do, where we're just like, oh, that guy must be a jerk face, I ask my therapist, and it's their job to think about this, whether they have an answer for it or not, but it's incredibly important to have a conceptualization. So I'll ask a conceptualization question. Why do you think the husband does that? You don't have the husband as a client, but hearing through your client, the husband's behavior, what is your initial or what is your hypothesis as to why that would happen? Because if we just go with the typical human or societal response, then it's just writing the guy off as a jerk face, as evil or something, instead of doing the work. And it's hard. And without training, it's almost impossible. Lay people aren't trained in this way. Most therapists are barely trained in this way. I would have to do a lot of work with students by the time they got to me, not to denigrate other professors, but there's just not enough time in graduate school, honestly. And so I asked him that question, like, okay, so you've laid out a very strong argument that Ethan has changed and that he is being more of a jerk face now than he was before and more toxic, and there doesn't seem to be any guardrails. And you've laid out some of the details about that, the button, the yes men, the absorbing the snark subreddit, that kind of stuff. Why would he do that? What do you think the reason is? And so what that provoked in Ian, because he takes that question to heart, I'll give him credit for that for sure, is to find a pathway. And often a pathway is through looking to yourself as a pathway to empathy, right? So he, as we just saw, Ian's like, well, I can kind of relate because I've been there and I know what can happen to you and that insecurity. And I just wanted to point that out as an element of something. I didn't notice it at the time because I'm not conscious necessarily of that.
Yeah, that's a good question from YouTube chatter. Like, did Ian really think that he was being empathetic with his content cop? I'm sorry, I can't believe that. I just absolutely cannot believe that in Ian's mind that he was thinking like, I think this is really gonna get through to him. I think this is really gonna speak to him. I'm sorry, I don't believe that at all.
Of that. Again, I'm actually
it was supposed to be an epic own. That's what it was supposed to be.
I'm also always trying to promote the notion, even in my casual conversations, that there's a question there. We might not know the answer, but most people have a logical reason as to why they would be hurtful or harmful or even abusive. It doesn't justify it at all, but it explains it and gives us something to work on. If we can change the factors that lead to the problematic behavior, then we can stop the problematic behavior.
And he's oftentimes like very concerned with that. Like he's looking for the feedback. I think it would probably be good for him to do stand-up or something, an open mic, to actually get an idea or get more in touch with what makes him funny. Because that's something that I like. That's going to be probably a constant journey for me, is figuring out what makes me funny or what people like about me or my content. So I just want that for him.
Okay. Did you just touch on something inside of you right now?
Yeah, I think
What
so.
was that?
Oh, yeah, I've just seen... It's frustrating because...
Yeah, it brings a tear to my eye. I'm just...
Hold on, you guys are saying that's why the nice thing at the end felt out of place, like the therapist said. Ian had to redo the ending because the therapist didn't dunk on Ethan. I think iDubbbz had it mostly edited, then did this session that changed the whole ending. It was this interaction we are learning about that caused the faux empathy. Oh, no, right, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, because even if they would have had a different ending, none of this is ever empathetic. But you're saying that maybe he wanted to be more empathetic after having this interaction, but like by then it's too late. You've already made the whole thing.
You sense the pain, right? You feel the anguish. It's deep. This is deep. I noticed a couple times,
guys,
including that time, that he was tearing up.
Some deep shit.
I think recall what he had been through himself, which has a lot of complicated feelings. The hurt of the harassment, the deep shame that I know that he feels. I was really surprised that he included a bit of this in the epilogue of his video. And it really makes me wonder, if I wasn't involved, how the video would have ended. Because I actually asked him if I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but I asked him if I hadn't responded the way that I had, how would the video have ended differently? And he said, oh, absolutely. In fact, what did he say here? And again, he's cool with me saying all this stuff. I've asked him. I was texting him saying, I had no idea how important I was to the ending of your content cop video. If I had known, I would have been more careful in the way that I refused to change my grade. And then Ian replied and said, you play a really important role in the video. it made me rethink the whole ending, to be honest. And it led to me deciding to get those creators to send me nice comments. So I feel good about that because I like the way it ended, absolutely. But I feel bad about inconveniencing a fellow content provider in that way. So
would you ever chat with Sam Hyde again? I don't know, maybe at some point in the future, but I would have to be like well sorted out to have like a really big ideologically driven conversation. And I generally don't. I'm generally a little bit more kind of like discrete fact or micro narrative focused.
Anyway, I also want to provide this for the main reason why I want to make, or one of the main reasons why I want to make this video is that I would imagine that, especially in the past, you would not imagine, if you did watch iDubbbz videos or even knew of him and maybe even disliked him, you would not necessarily know or think or imagine that he would be a normal human.
I have a super deep gut feeling that it was meant to be empathetic, but Ian got blindsided by the lefty Avengers, vis-a-vis letting other people self-insert and write shitty, dishonest arguments, ruining his chance to be in good faith. I disagree. If this was a live stream, I might agree with you, but this was a YouTube video. And when you're doing edited work, you have so much time to look over what you're doing, you're storyboarding it out, you're trying to figure out like, okay, well, what am I going to do here and here and all this, and you're putting things together. There's so much thought that goes into putting together like a whole ass video. There's no way that it accidentally comes out as literally the exact fucking opposite of what you wanted it to be. That's just, I don't believe that for a second. I'm sorry. There's just no shot.
Human being with vulnerabilities. You know, one of the big reasons why I want to make this video is to demonstrate for audience members and for content providers.
I could see like at the end of a live stream, like somebody being like, fuck, I kind of wanted to be more chill here. I feel like I got a little unhinged, right? Because there's no rewind button. You can't take back things you say.
That a thick skin is a myth. No one has a thick skin. You can't protect yourself. What difference does it make if you're a content provider or not? You're a human being.
His Content Cop was just filled with minor disagreements. It's still possible. But I mean, just think about what Content Cop was, right? Content Cop was basically digging through either a huge drama or a recent huge drama plus a bunch of stuff from somebody's past to discredit them or to show their hypocrisy or to show how bad of a person they were. That's what Content Cop was. So if you're bringing back Content Cop for Ethan, how am I supposed to think? How is anybody supposed to believe that this is anything besides a hit piece? Like,
and you cannot protect yourself. No one can from harassment and bullying and hatred. And we also understand that you can get 10 comments, 9 of which are positive, but 1 that's negative, and everyone focuses on that one negative thing. Everyone understands that. Content providers understand that every day of their lives. And unless there's a management system that involves not reading every single comment, that involves therapy and perspective and telling the audience, one of the best things that I ever did over time, because it sort of had a crescendo during the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial 3 years ago, I couldn't help myself but to tell people like how it was affecting me, the hatred that was coming my way. By telling my audience that, even people that didn't like me, I think it gave a lot of people the opportunity to understand and therefore have empathy and therefore take care, right?
Fuck. I've really tried hard to like control what I've been putting out online and like what I'm going to react to and think about other people. And it was like, at minimum like a full year of me like really questioning like everything I was putting out. And I had some confidence at the start of that, but like every video I put out, I'd be like, oh shit, like the views aren't good, the comments aren't good, like I don't know, like it just kept getting worse and worse. And so
one thing that like is so difficult, and I always say this for like, especially for newer streamers, but even for longtime streamers, I don't know if, I just don't know because I never watched Ian or Leafy or any of these people. Did he ever have like a downswing in his career? Or was it just when he did the big transition over to dating Anissa and then kind of like moving away from the Content Cop stuff? I don't know. Was he ever on like the losing side of any dramas? Because if not, that first time when you're changing up style significantly, or when you have had your first big like downswing in viewership for a lot of online content creators, it can be crushing. Because it's like because you really don't know, like, am I never coming back from this? Like, is this the end? Like, was I ever even funny? Did I luck into all of this? Like, if you've never gone through one of those moments of having a big career downswing, whew, it's a really rough thing.
So, now that I feel like it wasn't overnight, like me getting my confidence back, and I'm still probably not all the way there, but like,
does he deserve to feel some amount of concern or pain, or does he deserve some consequence for the bigotry that he put out there? You can answer the question how you want to, but I would answer that question, yes. it is fair that he experience some level of consequence, and that consequence could cause him some level of pain and insecurity. And as he acknowledges it and apologizes for it, he also deserves consequence. Does he deserve to feel some amount of
gaining my confidence? Now that I feel like it wasn't overnight, like me gaining my confidence back, and I'm still probably not all the way there, but like,
does he deserve to feel some amount of concern or pain, or does he deserve some consequence for the bigotry that he put out there? You can answer the question how you want to, but
I don't know if that's what Ian is talking about at all here, but okay.
I'd answer that question, yes. It is.
Did you have such an experience? I don't know. If I did, the closest would have been quitting StarCraft 2 and playing League. That was probably the biggest career transition I ever made. Oh, and then maybe this the past 3 months, but
for the bigotry that he put out there. You can answer the question how you want to, but I would answer that question, yes. It is fair that he experience some level of consequence, and that consequence could cause him some level of pain and insecurity. And as he acknowledges it and apologizes for it, he also deserves love and an opportunity for redemption and care and acceptance of the new him. Both of those things can happen at the same time. People that are fans of iDubbbz, even when he apologized, would say, you don't have to apologize, don't do that to yourself. Haters of him would say, he's just faking it. Or in this moment, they might say, well, you deserve it, motherfucker, whatever. Both are true, and both have to be true if we're going to make the world a better place. If people are going to be invited to change and welcomed to change and attracted to change, then we have to have the approach of both. There are consequences, and there is a path to redemption. And if you take that path, we will absolutely be there for you.
I feel like I have a much clearer idea because I didn't take like an easy route, or I didn't like fight back, or, you know, when I say easy route, I basically mean to say that I didn't go for the drama or the things that I know would get like views or attention, because I am familiar with it, but I know that it's just going to lead me to the same kind of place.
Which was what?
Which is being unhappy and regretful.
Wait, is he saying in the content cop thing he didn't go for the easy stuff? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, regretting what?
Hurting people, just
or does he mean his content altogether? He's talking about the totality of his content, I think.
Things that I know would get like views. I basically mean to say that I didn't go for the drama or the things that I know would get like views or attention, because I am familiar with it, but I know that it's just going to lead me to the same kind of place.
Which was what?
Which is being unhappy and regretful.
Yeah, regretting what?
Hurting people, just making like content that like didn't align with like my beliefs or principles.
So there it is, right? People can do bad things, very problematic things, hurtful things, post it on the internet, and do it over the span of months and years, and still be a good person. And how can that be? It happens all the time. Ethan, I assume the same thing is happening, but on a much larger scale, or a current scale, or a worse version of it, because of the factors that we've been talking about: the landscape of his family, CPS, the way that Ethan makes content, the way that he absorbs comments and subreddits and stuff. The button, as Ian has been pointing out, it can be even worse. And if we believe,
see, like the thing that's you have to be so careful about here is, and I'm sure he's had conversations about this exact thing, is we can't pathologize everything, because a pathology is definitionally bad. If you say something is a disease, that means it's a bad thing. This is why people push back sometimes against even calling autism a disease, because they feel like it encompasses a large part of their personality. And if you call autism a disease, then you're literally calling an autistic person a disease. Like they are diseased. That person intrinsically is a diseased person. Or it's why trans people sometimes will fight against any kind of like cure for being trans. They'll say, well, hold on, you can't cure me. This is who I am. For him to say and offer this perspective as a therapist or whatever, that Ethan is having huge problems right now, that he needs to figure out how to, incorporate criticism better, or not read or look at certain stuff or whatever. In a way, he's like giving everybody else on the internet, and I don't think that Dr. Kirk Honda is doing this per se, but he's giving other people the opportunity now to say, oh, when Ethan says X, Y, and Z, about Israel, Palestine, or about Hassan, that's just Ethan who is being sick in the head, and he needs to cure himself. He's sick right now, and he needs help. And it's like, well, hold on, Jesus, like that's a pretty disempowering view of somebody, and you're kind of like robbing them of all their agency by taking that route. You've pathologized what could be legitimate political or interpersonal viewpoints they've had. Now you're just saying it's just the result of them being diseased. I don't think that's good.
If we have consequences and we criticize, but welcome and invite and tell them there is a way out, there's an escape, and I believe in you, then we see change. So I don't need to say this, I don't think, but I hope that this helps to provide some understanding of what people go through, content providers, even other sorts of public figures, actors, politicians even, so that you know what it can feel like and how rare it is that they will display these feelings. And if they do even allude to them, just how much hatred that they get or dismissal that they will get.
You know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Neela. I'm like, fuck, like, it's just really, it's really hard.
Like, I would argue one of the grossest things that Ian did, as long as I'm not mixing up who said what, Ian literally did Ethan probably believes this thing, or at least heavily implied it, because his wife is Israeli, right? Didn't he do that? Which is like almost exactly the worst types of abuse that Ian has gotten, which is, you only believe this shit because of your OnlyFans slut wife. You know, you're cucked out now to your OnlyFans wife, and she's Arab, and that's why you're so cucked on all this. It's like, you're doing the exact same thing to Ethan. That's a bit rich, no?
To be a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like if you come to their defense, that doesn't always help them, right? Sometimes that makes it worse for them. So I'm seeing Ethan go through a lot of that, Ethan and Neela. And yeah, I really relate heavily to the harassment that they're getting, and I see them kind of like, you know, turn away from friends, lean more into money, get a lot more like flippant and a lot more like aggressive toward people, and I'm just like, fuck, that is...
So a major reason as to why he made the content cop video, I think, was because he's trying to help in his way.
Also, it is super fucking hilarious that Anissa has like distanced herself so hard from any like Arab or Islamic shit in the past, and now she's full on like, I am a proud Arab woman. Yes, I am of Arab heritage and Lebanese descent. I'm so proud, and I prayed 20 times a day. I don't know if she says she's Muslim, but it's funny.
I don't know if it will help. One could argue if it was really trying to help, it would have been less negative, so to speak, towards Ethan. But then one could argue maybe you have to be that pointed in your critique for it to break through and to get any sort of views and attention, that kind of, I don't know. But I think it's convincing that he cares about the two of them, Ethan and Neela.
Not ultimate.
You know what also sucks too? But this is whatever. This is literally a fantasy dream. I've got a better chance of getting unbanned from Twitch than anybody ever doing this. This could have actually been a really cool, good video where Ian says, here are some things that Ethan has said or done. Here are some things that I think are unfair of him that he should apologize for, or should stop doing. And here are ways that people are attacking Ethan that I think are unfair or unhinged. I don't think it's okay when people are doing this. But instead, he brings on the people that have been behind these attacks and doesn't mention any of that, which, by the way, is basically just greenlighting them. Right? You're basically just saying like, oh yeah, it's cool to do this. Like, literally, they were on my show. We fucking got Ethan. We got him good. Like,
ultimately going to like solve it for you.
You could see, so that's that Y in the road.
You know that Anissa was a mod for your Twitch channel? Yeah, we used to be friends, I think, a long time ago. But this was like when I was going to like BlizzCon. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You took the healing, touching grass, or touching marriage route away from the internet toward...
Why would this not be addressed privately to minimize harm? I mean, there's an argument for doing this all publicly, since this is all public anyway. But like how you do it publicly, I think, is going to determine how people view it or how people see it, right? Like this came like a hit piece. It was like an ownage piece. That's it.
Stability and attachment and love. Whereas he's taking the other path, which is to go on the offense and to maybe convince himself that he's right and everyone else is wrong, and he doesn't care. You know, you can imagine having that defensive, just I don't give a shit what everyone, when you absolutely do care what people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you allowed yourself to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
Now and back then. But you could see how you could harden.
Yeah.
And toughen up.
Totally. It's been very tempting, you know? Yeah. Like if I had the button like he has, I'd fucking hit it all the time.
Yeah. So I think that's all that we'll watch.
That button, dude. They made a real big deal out of that button.
Quickly after this, but I think that's a good representation of the overall conversation that we had for over 3 hours. So for those of you who never watched the Content Cop video, I thought we would watch a bit of it towards the end, in case you have been wondering this whole time what I've been referring to.
Okay, iDubbbz, I hear you. You're in the room with me right now. I hear you. I hear your request. I understand it. I can understand where it's coming from. And I I guess, have a policy that when there is a grade for an apology, I am just grading that discrete apology as I see it without taking any consideration of prior or future behavior. If you're wanting me to comment on the overall behavior or the recent behavior from the clips that you have shown me, I believe that Ethan is a good person and that eventually he will feel sorrow and will feel sorry and will apologize, and I will be there to evaluate that apology when it happens, which I know it will.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Unfortunately, Kirk did not change his grade.
Oh, I guess another thing to say is I'm glad that I didn't know that I was going to be so heavily featured at the end of his content cop video, because I knew that if he released another content cop video that it would get a lot of attention. As of right now, it's 2 days after it published. An airplane is going overhead, I don't know if you get, and the video has over 5 million views and counting. So if I knew that, I think I would have been too terrified to even get 2 words out while we were talking. So I guess it's a blessing in disguise. But anyway, when I watch this...
To Ian, Hassan and friends are not the harassers of Ethan. The narrative is that there is a small minority of those viewers that harassed Ethan and Hila, and that Hassan and his friends constantly told their fans not to harass him. Although anyone that understands streaming knows what sort of control a streamer has over chat. The thing is, Ian isn't a streamer. He has no control, or he has no idea how bad Hassan's chat exposes him to actually be. That could be true as well. Yeah, because it is interesting that, like, you know, people will accuse... I guess like people that I fight with will accuse my community of being unhinged or whatever, but like you can see everything my community says. We have rules that are very open. There's a reason why that every single time somebody accuses my community of doing something unhinged, it's always like a 2 or 0 follower account on Twitter when Ludwig tried to pull that. And it doesn't seem, or if they exist, at least I haven't seen them, that my community is running around making all of these insane anti-fan, you know, other communities of other streamers. But why is it? What do these other streamers do that their streamers or that their fan bases are all like religiously and cultishly contributing to these kind of like anti-fan communities? I don't know. I feel like that's kind of makes you think.
This video yesterday, I was like, oh, sorry. I mean, I stand by that, but sorry. So that's genuine. This reaction here, he's just like, so he refused to change. And I heard from him that, yeah, I had to rewrite the ending because of that. Sorry.
But that's okay, because this is the internet. Anyone can have their own official apology rating system. So I'm going to rate Ethan's apology a B-. That's just based on my own feelings and my own rubric. When Psychology in Seattle was watching these video clips of Ethan, he said that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug. Now, of course, it kind of pisses me off to hear that shit, because I'm like, what are we doing? What are we saying? He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs. I think something that's very important to me in bringing back content.
Like, let's assume, or no, we don't have to assume, like, what did he even go over? And I'm serious, I'm asking this in good faith. Somebody steelman this for me. What did Ian even cover in his video that would have made anybody watching it feel like so mad towards Ethan? Like, what was the worst thing that Ethan even did that Ian covered in his video? He needs an ass whip. Like, what did he even fucking do? The button, I guess? That one that from the Snark subreddit where they were like, when he muted the button, that was the only time in my life I was like, oh shit, Ethan is gonna be fucked. Because if I had some shit muted, but this is a streamer's worst nightmare, by the way, is you think shit is muted and you start talking and you're like, oh fuck. And then I watched the clip and I was like, oh shit, I need to find the real one because I must be looking at the wrong thing, because this is the most nothing burger thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It was Ethan complaining that like AB or somebody was like slowing down the content. I was like, this is nothing. That's the worst thing that you had in your whole content cop? Seriously? What?
Cop is to be fair. I think that was something that was not illustrated in previous content cops that I think should have been, and probably wouldn't have left me with so much regret. Ethan deserves all of the criticism that he's getting. I think it's very valid.
All of it? That he's an abusive parent? That he neglects his family? That he's pro-genocide? That he's, like, what criticisms are you even talking about? Do you even know what people are normally criticizing him for? Like, what he's responding to?
But I also think, at the end of the day, we should acknowledge that he's human, because he is human. And he is in a situation that's making him extremely scared, paranoid, defensive, sensitive, and I'm sure other features and feelings. In the spirit of Kirk...
I love this. I love it. I love it. The video is still very pointed and very...
Like, no. You can't just throw that in at the end as a fucking tagline and pretend that you've done something. That is total fucking bullshit. That is total fucking bullshit. It doesn't work that way, okay?
Critical. But I'm having chills to have this epilogue or this ending or the climax of the video, to have it have this tone while still staying true to his voice. It's a new voice-ish, but it's still him. It's authentic. It's real. It's just music to my ears, and could be the dawn of a new age on YouTube. And if there's something that is going to get across, that's going to be convincing and inviting and welcoming while still being critical and still having consequences for Ethan, this is the approach, in my opinion. We'll see what happens.
Sensitive, and I'm sure other features and feelings. In the spirit of Kirk saying that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug, I have challenged some of his most powerful haters to put down the haterade and just say something nice and charitable about him, because I think he deserves it.
I just wanted to say that I respect that you are genuinely yourself on the internet. I think a lot of other people respect you for it as well. I think that's a big reason why people were drawn to your content in the first place. I think that's a lot of the reason why your employees chose to work with you over anyone else.
Ethan, I think it's respect.
Is he going to comment on some of these quote unquote compliments where they're saying you used to be so cool?
That you even began this journey to leave behind the anti-SJW crowd and step into a more empathetic worldview. I know it's not easy.
Ethan Klein, I think that when you are being goofy, when you're being silly, when you are being lighthearted, and just having fun with your friends, I think that is when you're at your best. So I'd love to see more.
I even feel guilty for causing Ian to reach out to these other content providers and making them or asking them to say something positive. I don't know. I feel funny about having influence in that way when I didn't know that that would happen. You know what I mean? I don't want to be inconvenient to anybody. So as I said at some point earlier in this video, I said I was going to end the video with someone attacking me because I was involved in the content cop video. And I'm not going to show their username or anything, but I wanted to show what love can do. And how if we all participate in that, then we can all make the world a better place. Not only just a happy rainbow unicorn place, but a meaningfully better place for us and our kids and our grandkids in the world. I don't say that lightly. I'm not the one who invented this idea. It's not even originated from our era. This has been around for centuries. So take that. But as an example, I knew that being in the content video would result in me being attacked because I know the internet. I didn't know if it would be Ian's fans or Ethan's fans or people that hate both of them, or I don't know. Or just sometimes I realize that just being noticeable on the internet just attracts people that have issues, disturbed individuals, or people that are deeply, deeply unhappy and use bullying as a way to just get a little inkling of happiness or distraction from their own extremely miserable lives.
True.
But anyway, so I'm not going to dox this person or show their username or anything, but this person DM'd me. I received a number of things like this, but he said, stay in your lane and stop internet diagnosing people, hack. One, I'm not a huge fan of people not using punctuation. There should be a comma there. Just stop internet.
I'm sorry, wait, these are the messages that we're calling hate? Well, I guess this guy's not used to it very much. What do I have in my DMs? 9 hours ago. Can someone get this blue-haired failure another cock to suck on, like father, like son? I know Nathan thought about it. I'm calling it. He is one day us Andrew community will convince him for fun. So funny your cocksucker ass did that because Andrew community, which I'm in spam, sent your sex tape to your son and his mother. Will you ever have real friends again? Oh yeah, faggots never keep friends for long, only for gain. You should kill yourself. I know you thought about it. I told the same thing to your son. He's gonna die of anal rape. Both of you are social sodomites and your whole family are wild animals. You made your son block me because I sent him his daddy giving a horrible BJ, you handicap clown rainbow flag. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Anyway. Back to this hater message.
Hack. One, I'm not a huge fan of people not using punctuation. There should be a comma there.
This guy did not use very much punctuation.
Just stop internet diagnosing people, comma, hack. But anyway, so stay in your lane and stop internet diagnosing people, hack. So I was a little confused because in the content cop video, there's nothing.
Is that one of your more recent ones? Did you say because it's particularly unhinged? This is 9 hours ago. I get wonderful messages from my fans all the time.
Approximating me diagnosing anyone, right? So I was wondering, is this just a random hater? But it had the feel and it had the immediacy of someone that had watched the video. But regardless, there's various different ways that I'll respond to this. Usually I won't respond at all, but one of the responses that I will have to things like this is just to ask a question. Don't get wordy, just say, oh, tell me. And so I asked, who did I diagnose? That's all I asked. And given the screenshot that I took, it's actually hard for me to show both sides of the conversation. So you're just gonna have to trust me that that's what I said was, so who did I?
This guy. Byron.od. Blue_chips4. He sent that at 7:20 a.m. This guy woke up and first thing in the morning, he was like, I'm gonna get this blue-haired cuck.
diagnosed, partly as a hope that
rise and grind, friends. True.
What happens a lot of times that I find is that when a troll or someone who's hating you online, someone that's being really unreasonable, if you just acknowledge that they exist and show up as a human being, they will immediately soften. Not only because they're not that way in their real life, but also because they're desperate for contact. You know, I have the benefit of growing up as a child as a very large kid. I was gargantuan compared to a lot of my classmates, particularly in the tween years. You know, when I hit puberty early, I was often mistaken for an adult when I was like 12 years old, that kind of thing. Anyway, so I would occasionally get bullied. Sometimes racism would happen. That's a funny way, but you know, I grew up in a primarily almost completely white community, and I was regularly called, you know, gook and Chinaman and all the things, and attacked and violently sometimes. But because I was large, I was never really that afraid.
The shit out of all of
myself.
them.
And I'll never forget that there was this one bully in junior high that was bullying me in the locker room, actually, you know, after PE. And he was just pestering me with these insults and just, you know, coming after me, and no one else was doing anything.
You should answer that guy and reach out in a human way. You know, I don't think I have any records of these jams, but in the past, sometimes I would do that. Like, I would respond with like a frowny face, and then they'd be mean, and I would say something else, and I'd be like, I don't know, man, it seems kind of unhinged. And I think every time I've done that, actually, the people are like, yeah, whatever, okay. And they generally chill, which is kind of funny. I also, every now and then, I'll have a person message me, and the DM will pop up, and they'll be like, hey, dude, I was in a rough place, and I'm sorry, blah, blah. And I'll scroll up, and they like threaten to murder me and my whole family or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, you know, it's all good, dude.
And I was ignoring him at first, and then I would try to fire back, but he was better at it than I was, I think. And then eventually I just kind of lost my temper, and I just grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up and slammed him against the lockers. And he immediately...
We need a content cop on Dr. Kirk Honda.
Apologized and was nice to me almost forever after that, I think. And he was always a bit of a dick all the time. But after that, he was not only just afraid of me, I guess, but I think it was weird that I've since understood this, that he was lonely. No one was acknowledging him because he was an outcast. I had friends. He did not. And in the locker room, it can be particularly noticeable, I think. And he just had an outburst, and he was looking for attention, and he couldn't get it, so he tried to get negative attention. And I gave him that negative attention, and it satisfied him. I acknowledged he was there. I showed him that he mattered in the world, that he has an effect on the world. Sometimes you'll take anything, even if it's negative attention, even if it's literally me throttling him and putting him in a powerless position where I could hurt him very badly. And
Jesus.
That feels like it gets some need met, because so little of your needs are being met. I don't know, but I'm going to take a guess and say that his home life wasn't great. So when people will attack me online, especially when it's something like this, it has that look to it. That kid, when I was 13, peppering me with insults in the locker room. And so if I just turn to the person and acknowledge, so part of me was doing that by asking a question like, who did I diagnose? And not lowering myself to trying to defend, you're a hack or whatever. The other reason why I asked the question in part was I am curious, because I've made thousands of episodes online, and maybe I accidentally or I wasn't clear enough in my discussions that I'm not diagnosing someone from afar. I could see how that could happen at times. I am very careful about that. I've always been careful about that. But sometimes I make a mistake, or maybe it just requires me to clarify, well, actually, that isn't a diagnosis.
I don't think that... So Dr. K kind of does this as well, where they'll be like, they'll say like, oh, this isn't therapy, but it kind of looks like it. Although I think Dr. K... Actually, hold on, I shouldn't say that. That's not fair. I went full Dan there for a moment. I don't think Dr. K does this. I don't want to say that would... well, maybe he does, but I just don't see it. Because I think that when Dr. K talks, I think he's usually just generalizing. There are people... I think this Dr. Kirk guy does this, and I think that the really weird Todd Grande guy does this, where people will kind of like talk about another person from afar, and even if you're not necessarily diagnosing them, I think you are pathologizing a lot of their behavior, which can be really harmful. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? Pathologizing? Pathology is like a disease, and when you pathologize something, you're saying that this thing is the result of a disease. That's what it means to pathologize something. And when you've pathologized something, then like tautologically, right? It's built into the definition of the word. A disease is a bad thing that has to go. So when you pathologize somebody's behavior, in one sense, you are basically giving carte blanche to everybody to attack it in the most aggressive way possible, because it's literally bad. It's literally stemming from a disease. And then you rob that person of the ability to ever have a discussion or feel heard or to have an argument relating to those things, because now it's just part of the pathology, it's part of the disease. And I think that's scary and dangerous and not good, but...
Diagnosis, and if you heard earlier, I was saying it was completely speculative, and I actually wasn't even talking about that.
You can put quality filters on splitters for quality levels as well as operators. Makes up or automating quality upcycling much easier. I'm just doing this manually right now because I want quality things, but I don't want to build a whole thing for it. I did do this on my home planet though. Look, all of these are all quality creators. I don't know how people normally build these, but it makes it here, and then it puts it in the recycler, and then that sorts out the ingredients, and anytime it's blue or purple, it goes to this lane, and it goes in the box, okay?
That cast member on reality TV I was talking about, a hypothetical client or whatever, you know. And so I'll invite, and sometimes that's good feedback for me to receive. It's like, oh, I need to word that differently because someone...
Constant pathologizing is the reason why it's cringe when people overuse psych terms. I agree. And it's one of the things that I like the most, just from a little bit I've seen, okay? Not trying to be a major simp, but it's one of the things I like the most about Dr. K is that it seems like he has a really good grasp. He's really good at talking to people, but it seems like he has a good grasp on all the underlying fundamental psychological stuff. But when he talks to people, like, it doesn't seem like those words come out very often. Like, oh, I see that you're in need of some validation on the way that you're processing this event. Like, it more likely, it feels like you'd be like, oh yeah, man, that's fucking sucks. I still think his conversation with Sneeko was amazing. That Sneeko opened up as hostile as possible about how lame and gay and weak therapy was and just going off on it. And in basically like 15 minutes, Dr. K more or less had him talking about his feelings and everything in a way that Sneeko probably didn't imagine he would going into that. But he's just so good at communicating with people. But yeah, the constant utilization of all the psych terms and language and everything as a way to delegitimize an actual talking point is really fucking annoying. It's one of the things I hate the most about Hassan. And I guess a lot of the internet, maybe a lot of the world now, in terms of like talking about things, we don't ever talk about problems. It's just all ad homs and drama slop. Right? And when I'm saying ad hom here, I mean it in a very intentional way. I don't mean insulting somebody. You can insult somebody, that's fine. But an ad hominem is when you attack an argument by insulting the person. If you want to attack an argument and then insult the person, that's fine. That's not an ad hominem. That's not a fallacious use of it. If I want to say, you're a fucking retard, 1 + 1 = 2, dipshit, that's not an ad hom. That's just being an asshole. I think being an asshole is fine. But when somebody says, well, I think that Palestine, you know, doesn't have the right to have this or whatever, and it's like, well, you would think that because you're a genocidal fucking monster who cheers when Arab children are raped and murdered. It's like, okay, well, that's not even true. Like, so I don't even know what the fuck, like, in that mode of discourse on the internet, Hassan largely propagates that. I'll give Asmongold, I guess, a little prop there, is that Asmongold typically doesn't do that. Like, he tries to make arguments, even if I think they're all factually fucking horrible. But he doesn't engage in the same way that, or at least I haven't seen him do it yet, in the same way that Hassan does. It seems like Asmongold is just very factually confused all the time, whereas Hassan is very intentional in his kind of like propaganda model for dealing with other people, the same way that Trump does and Trump's administration does.
One interpreted it. So I was asking for both of the reasons. I mostly expected him to say, well, you're a jerk face. I don't want it. If you don't...
Sorry, hold on. Pathologizing also alleviates some accountability from wrongdoing. It helps people understand other people's troubles in times of dispute. I actually disagree with that completely, and it's one of the reasons why I hate pathologizing so much, is because pathologizing, in my mind, it always allows you to go one of two roads. When you pathologize another person, what you're doing is you're delegitimizing any of their arguments, and you're making it okay to ignore, you're making it okay to ignore all of the arguments while still hating them for the arguments they're making. Like, none of the people that are pathologizing Ethan are saying, man, Ethan's making a lot of rough arguments about Palestine, but I understand he's going through it. Nobody's saying that. They're saying, wow, Ethan is sick in the fucking head. That's why all of his arguments are illegitimate. And then boom, so we got that. But then he's sick. He's twisted. He needs some fucking help. He needs to touch grass, you fucking loser. You need to go touch grass. You're sick, right? So they either do it to discard all of your arguments and then give you none of the empathy, or somebody does it when they want you to think that they're sick, but they still want you to like take the argument seriously. So for instance, somebody will say like, oh yeah, like the reason why I said all that fuck shit or whatever is because like I'm sick. They don't want any of the accountability, but they still stand by like all of the arguments that they say, like, yeah, I'm definitely like in a rough place. And then they'll go back to saying the unhinged shit. It's like, wait, what the fuck? What's going on here? And then later on, they'll use the pathology. So I feel like when people talk about pathologies, they just do it to eject like some half of the equation, depending on who they're arguing with. They want to rob you of your autonomy when they agree with your arguments, and they want to rob you of the arguments when they, I guess, when they want to give you autonomy. I don't know. I think it's ridiculous.
I mostly expected him to say, well, you're a jerk face. I don't want it. If you don't know, then you're even more of a hack. Like, you don't even know what you did, like, something like that. Or just someone not replying. But a lot of the times, what happens is what happened. So let me show you what they said. I acted extremely rash, rude, jumped the gun. I need to take time away from the screen.
Yeah, this more often than not, this is usually what happens. This is usually what happens when you confront somebody. Or I don't know if he did and he edited out his message, or the guy just sent something later on. He's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. When is it okay to pathologize someone? When you have their best interest in mind and you're kind of like working with them to figure something out, I think that type of pathologizing is like, okay. You just have to be really, really careful when you do it. Like, I brought this example up before. Depending on the girl, some women are very, 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 very emotional during their PMS time, right before their period. And if you've dated somebody long enough, you'll know if they are. You'll know if they're that kind of person. There's a way where something is coming up and there's like a really ridiculous fight where you can say like, hey, are you feeling okay? I like see the time of the month or whatever. Like, there's a way where you can do this where the person is like, okay, yeah, I'm unhinged. Like, leave me alone for a day. Or, okay, sure, just like be more patient or whatever. Where you're not bringing this up as a way to discredit them in the argument or as a way to dodge or avoid accountability. You're like genuinely trying to bring up a thing where it's like, okay, I think this fight is way more unhinged than it needs to be. But when you just weaponizing it to like, oh, you're just like PMSing, fuck you or whatever, right? You just have to be very careful. But I think that people can usually tell if it's in good faith or if it's not in good faith. Like, do you actually give a fuck about this person's current emotional state, or you're just doing this to avoid an argument? Kind of like how I think this is comparable to the misgendering thing. I don't think any sane human being should have to worry about misgendering somebody, because unless you're maybe on a college campus, because those people are crazy. Because like, if you're talking to a trans person, if you fuck up or whatever, like, most people are chill as long as you're doing your best or whatever. You're not like intentionally trying to go at somebody. Like, at least in my personal experience, most trans people in real life don't give a fuck. It's only the crazy online ones, yeah.
I apologize. I'm not sure why I felt the need to express any vitriol over internet drama that you seem to be kind of thrown in the middle of, and I misheard and interpreted what you said. Or vitriol in general, as it doesn't help anything. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And thing is, after reassessing what you actually said, I felt incredibly stupid and thought you handled the iDubbbz thing well. Not that my opinion matters on that. You are not a hack, and from what I've since read, you do some good stuff. I appreciate you helping people heal. I also just want to say again that my behavior is disappointing and unacceptable. Apologies to you. So not only is this a nice response, a good outcome of me asking that question, but this is like extremely positive, right?
Holy shit, is this guy? What if this guy was fucking Ethan? And Dr. Kirk Honda is about to give this guy an A+ for an apology, and then Ethan is going to reveal it was him, and he got 2 A+ apologies. Oh shit. Oh shit. I'm just kidding.
It's like, whoa. And this should illuminate things, not only in general, but also for people like Ethan, that the attacks that come.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Hold on. I want to respond. This is important. At Destiny, no way. Where is that unicorn that says, yeah, you're right, I'm unhinged? In my own experience, they tend to go even crazier. It is incredibly important. This is true of things like sex and consent. And it's true of like fighting or people who get emotional or whatever. It is very important to have these conversations outside of the heat of the moment. You never, ever, ever, if you feel like a partner gets unreasonable around their period time or whatever, I'm using periods. I mean, it can be for men too. Some guys I'm really grumpy if I'm hungry and I don't even realize it sometimes. If there's a person, they're grumpy if they're short on sleep or whatever, like, you have these conversations when you're not fucking fighting. You can't just bring it up every time you're fighting and only when you're fighting, because then it's going to feel to the other person like you're just using it to discredit them. So these are conversations that have to be had when sober minds are prevailing, when you're like sobriety, not just in the chemical sense, but also in that you're not currently fighting, and then you have the conversation then, and then it's easier to bring up during a fight.
Extremely positive, right? It's like, whoa. And this should illuminate things, not only in general, but also for people like Ethan, that the attacks that come are often not the full picture. If you give people a chance and you believe in them and you treat them like you believe in them and you don't participate in the fear and hatred feedback cycle, then goodness can happen, not only just in the world, but to me. I did the thing that I talked about by not lowering myself, by believing in someone, I didn't know, but I wondered that if I just acknowledged or if I didn't participate in it, maybe he would. And there's many examples of this. Lindy West, actually, a local Seattleite, did a whole thing on this, through Gamergate 10, 15 years ago, I can't remember, and talked about this.
What was her name?
Local Seattleite, or if I didn't participate in it, maybe he would. And there's many examples of this. Lindy West, actually, a local Seattleite, did a whole thing on this, through Gamergate 10, 15 years ago, I can't remember, and talked about this, and I think wrote about it a lot. So I'm not the first person to experience this kind of thing where you actually turn to a troll and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I actually am a fan of you, or whatever, So by doing this, not only am I putting goodness in the world, but I'm getting goodness back. And isn't that the golden rule, right? It's not just something you hear about in church. It's not just something that your parents tell you when you're 4. What comes around goes around. It's a real fucking phenomenon that has real empirical elements of a causal nature. There's a logical A, B, and C. Anyway, so I replied to him. Again, you can't see it, but it was something along the lines of...
Why? I wonder why he deleted his replies. Any idea? Did he say? Or is there like some way that you can only screenshot what they sent you, or?
Thank you. It's very heartwarming.
The replies are all like, here's pictures of me when I was a kid. I was fucking huge. These people used to call me Asian slurs. Let me tell you about this time I throttled the fuck out of this one guy. That's going to be you. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said.
Read your response. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes sometimes. No biggie, that kind of thing. That's how I want to end this video. On the off chance.
Destiny has no idea what he's talking about. Acer genuinely has mental issues. He constantly tweaks out on stream and randomly does movements. He has had Tourette's for his whole life. I mean,
that's that Ethan is watching, or someone that's close to him is watching. I do believe in you, Ethan. I believe that you're a good person. I know you're a good person. You've demonstrated that many, many times. And
what steps do you think Ethan would have to make to get back in the good graces of the woke Avengers? I imagine it's impossible. Should have disavowed the state of Israel. Oh no, you just have to fully buy into the Palestinian historical revisionism, like the whole Pali narrative. And if you buy into that, you're good. They let him back in a heartbeat.
I feel
like Destiny is using Ethan to vent his frustration about the internet drama he is personally involved in. I can vent my frustrations all on my own. I don't need somebody else's drama to vent my own frustrations. And I have. But thank you.
You've demonstrated that many, many times. And I also, as Ian does as well, empathize with the harm that you have experienced. The real harm that you have been subjected to by people on the internet, by maybe even other content providers, Twitter, this sort of thing. It's unfair. It's not okay. I also will say that there are lifestyles regarding content provision that protects you so that you can live another day to make content. You're not sticking your head in the sand. You're not ignoring the criticism. You're not putting up an ivory tower or something, but you're monitoring how it is affecting your soul. And one of the first very noticeable signs you will see in your behavior, and this is shown in empirical science as well, that as you absorb more toxicity, the first sign, or one of the major signs that you're being affected, is you will lose empathy. You will lose the ability to care about other people's feelings because you're in a state of shock, essentially, and you don't have the capacity to care. We study this in my field. We call it secondary trauma or burnout or post-traumatic or vicarious trauma. As therapists, we will hear a lot of difficult traumatic stories. One of the things that will happen if we don't monitor it and have systems in place is, in our effort to help other people, we will absorb too much of it and we will lose empathy, and we won't be able to help any one of our clients because we've lost our empathy. We end up having negative points of view. We get annoyed with people, but also we don't have empathy for ourselves. We don't have empathy for people in our lives. Everything starts to fall apart, and it very much looks that way. And that is unsustainable. There is no way that Ethan can survive if he does not change that. He can hold his principles. He can hold his opinions, his core opinions. He can still fight back. But there has to be touching grass, as I was saying.
Like, I really don't like
video.
this.
There has to be touching relationships grass.
Like you're robbing him of so much agency. I think it's unfair to do so. And I feel like this guy should know better. I just think it's really unfair to, because he's also, keep in mind that when I don't want to use the word therapy like it's bad because it's therapy, or therapizing or whatever, therapizing. When you're talking this way, you're also, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to phrase this exactly. There's a way of manipulating people where you can't push back because the framing that they're using is just so obviously selflessly like helpful that you're kind of like immobilized from doing anything. Like if somebody's saying like, bro, I'm just trying to help, like, let me just help you by doing this thing that is also exactly what would, benefit me in the most. Like when people come at you from that frame, like fighting back feels wrong and bad because, well, fuck, if this person's saying they're just trying to help me and now I'm fighting back against it, I feel like it's really gross. I'm not saying he's necessarily doing it intentionally, but damn, like Ethan has no room to look at a video like this and say, I disagree. Well, what do you disagree with? You disagree with trying to become a healthier, better version of yourself? You disagree with trying to build better relationships and touching grass and being nice to other people? Convenient. Like, now you've managed to bundle all of the opinions and factual statements and political views that he's had into this pathology you've created for him. And now the only way that he can rid himself, you know, of these pathologies, also coincidentally, it happens to be ridding himself of the same political views that all these other people disagree with. I don't know. I think that's not good.
There has to be a vacation from it. And there has to be a system to protect you from absorbing too much of the negativity. No one can handle that. Even the great Ethan Klein cannot handle that. No one can. It's at the very least not good for you and your marriage and your health, but it could be bad for the world. It could be bad for your...
Like, I can already see people like saying, like, yeah, bro, even Dr. Kirk Honda said you're literally destroying your fucking marriage and your family over this e-drama, bro. Like,
fans, could be bad for your content. It could be bad for your friends, like what happened to Ian and Nisa. And I'm guessing many, many others around Ethan have also...
Yeah, like your poor Arab employees.
What's been happening. So... that's what I want.
Also, look at that. Like, damn. So every single bad thing that's happening to every single person around Ethan is basically Ethan's fault. He's the one causing all of this. Nothing to say for any of the other people involved in any of it, but okay.
I say, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. Spread the love, spread the empathy, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.
And again, I don't think that this guy, the Kirk Honda guy, I don't think he's like intentionally trying to fuck with him, but